Evening. And welcome to the Pima Community College May 11, 2022 Governing Board meeting. I hereby call the meeting to order at 5:32 p.m. Thank you for all being here. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. DeRay, can you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. DeRay. We have a full agenda again, and so I would like to start by thanking all of those who continuously show resilience, patience, attention to detail, and professionalism in helping us to prepare this meeting. Special shout out to Dan the man and all the IT crew that are here today and our security teams. Indeed, there is a lot to be thankful for. As a board member, I was personally blessed with opportunities to observe firsthand many of our campuses and departments and the students. I also had a stirring and uplifting visit to a Sunnyside district school, the Star Academy, where I met with the Sunnyside superintendent, the principal, and the chair of the Sunnyside school board. I know that our chancellor and several administrators have been there as well in the past. If you don't know about Star Academy, it's a school created for students who have trouble in high school and need an extra boost in meeting minimum education requirements, extra classes, and an environment that encourages learning. All efforts to prepare people for life. The positive atmosphere was absolutely palpable, indeed inspiring. So our collaboration with Sunnyside and all the school districts in Pima County is integral to the foundation of Pima and its role in this community. This is an important component of our enrollment strategy led by our provost and Dr. DeRay's team. The board will be following through and tracking their progress through the chancellor. I'd like to reiterate that the recruitment and enrollment is just the tip of the iceberg. It is in the tracking and retention of every student that will truly make a huge difference to this school and this community. I would also like to announce that the chancellor is not here tonight due to a family emergency. So we do have Dr. DeRay here sitting in for the chancellor. Thank you so much for doing that. I'd also like to send out big kudos, shout out to the culinary arts and hospitality departments for their amazing efforts in making the Chef Jeff event happening. It was truly an honor to be there and watch with amazement what our students were doing. The most moving part was when we conferred Pima's first ever honorary degree to Chef Jeff. Let's look at that moment if we can. I think we're trying, there we go, we're queuing up a video. Thank you.
This is a very humble moment right here for me. And it took me 3 years to earn my high school diploma. And I always feared going to college because I never felt that I was smart enough. And so to receive this honorary culinary degree is huge for me. I wish my family could have been here. I've never been to culinary school. I've never taken a cooking class. I learned from putting in the hard work. And so I want to thank all of you, this college, this community, all the chefs and the students here. And this will not be my last time here to Tucson. This definitely will not be my last time here. So thank you so much. This is huge. This is big for me. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks so much for queuing that up. I wanted to share that with a lot of you that did not have the chance to attend. It was extremely moving to be there in person, to see Chef Jeff that emotional about this honorary degree. That single moment is precisely what we cherish the most at Pima Community College, moments like those, to see someone who never dreamed of being in the position of receiving a GED or a certificate or a 2-year degree and maybe even a shot at a bachelor's degree and beyond. To see them light up when it becomes a reality is something truly amazing, and it was an honor to see that happen. It's why all of us do what we do here at Pima Community College, so thank you to everyone who made that event happen. There was so much else happening at all of our campuses this past month. I mean, baseball, soccer, track and field, our stunning arts and fashion department exhibits, they're still happening. Beautiful musical recitals, an open house for our Aviation Center of Excellence students, and so much more that I can't possibly list here. Academically, students are currently, as we speak, myself included, preparing for finals and graduation. We all look forward to attending the keynote event, Donned in Our Regalia, so we'll see you there. Tomorrow evening, I'll also be attending the Veterans graduation ceremony. Turning to today's agenda, I'm deeply concerned by an agenda item we will be discussing with respect to the findings of the Attorney General, the Arizona Attorney General's office, that members of the board have violated Arizona open meeting laws. Additionally, as a self-governing elected board, it is our responsibility to uphold the law and our oath of office. These actions undermine the public's trust, violates our fiduciary responsibilities, and erodes our integrity, the integrity of this institution, putting our accreditation at risk. We'll hear more from the outside counsel on this, and I look forward to meaningful dialogue to help ensure we are meeting our responsibilities as a board. We've had several training sessions on board responsibilities and roles, and we will continue to hold these trainings in the future and so much more. The stability, mission, and success of this college is our fundamental responsibility. We are obligated to that end to be accountable and professional to those who elected us. But most of all, we must work together as a team, support one another, and always seek what's best for the college. So thank you for all being here, and most of all for caring so much about Pima Community College. So I'd like to turn now to Mr. Sylvan, who will introduce the outside general counsel to speak more to those attorney general findings. Mr. Sylvan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one point of order, a piece of business that we hadn't taken care of yet. That's the roll call.
Oh, please go ahead with the roll call. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez. Ms. Garcia. Dr. Hay.
Here.
Mr. Klinko.
Here.
Ms. Ripley.
Here.
So all board members are present.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for indulging me with that digression. We have with us this evening Susan Siegel. She's a very experienced attorney. She's a member of a firm called Gust Rosenfeld that does significant amount of work for different public entities in Arizona. I'm not going to go into detail about her background, but I just wanted to mention some particularly relevant information about her background. And that is that she served in the office of the Arizona Attorney General for 10 years. And during that time, she was a section chief in the education and health section. And more importantly for our discussion this evening, she was part of the Arizona Attorney General Open Meeting Law Enforcement Team. She was also part of the Arizona Attorney General Opinion Review Committee, and in fact is the author of the 2005 opinion about the open meeting law and electronic communications that's cited in the letter that's included with the board materials this evening. So with that, as a little bit of background, I would ask Ms. Siegel to share the information with us.
Good evening, board members, Madam President. Madam Chair, I'm sorry. This is Susan Siegel. I apologize in advance for my voice. Seems that I have something that seems to want to cling to me, but I'm on the, at least I think, the end of this run. I am going to read portions, most of the letter of April 14th, 2022, issued by the Office of the Arizona Attorney General. Dear board members and Ms. Siegel, as you know, the Office of the Arizona Attorney General received a self-reported complaint alleging that the Pima County Community College District Governing Board violated Arizona's open meeting law. The office has concluded its review of the board's self-reported complaint and the board's responses to the office's request for additional information. As discussed below, the office has determined board members Maria Garcia and Luis Gonzalez violated the open meeting law for two reasons. First, Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez sent multiple email communications that were addressed to a quorum of the board and proposed legal action. Second, Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez individually and collectively violated the open meeting law by disclosing confidential executive session information to a third party that was not authorized to receive such information pursuant to ARS Section 38-431.03 B as in boy and F. This disclosure of executive session information occurred in two separate instances. First, in the September 14, 2020 memorandum discussing diversity, inclusiveness, and social justice. And second, the June 21st, 2021 memorandum discussing the termination of a district employee. Each of these instances disclosing executive session information constitutes an open meeting law violation. And I'm going to jump to the section that talks about violation for email communications sent to a quorum of the board. Here, the email communications went simply beyond asking for a matter to be placed on a future board agenda. Instead, the email communications expressed Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez's opinions and interpretations on matters that would foreseeably come before the board for future discussion or legal action. These email communications essentially invited the board to engage in a non-public discussion of a matter that could foreseeably come before the board for future legal action and expressed far more than simply asking the matter to be put on an agenda for discussion at a future meeting. Ultimately, the contents of the email communications should have been properly noticed and added to a meeting agenda so that the board could address these matters in an open public meeting rather than through emails to a quorum of the board. The board's response notes that Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez believe that the email communications are permissible under ARS Section 38-431.09 B as in boy, which in relevant part permits an individual member of a public body to express an opinion or discuss an issue through technological means that may come before the public body at a future meeting, so long as such discussion is not principally directed at or directly given to another member of the public body. Further, this exception does not apply where there is collective deliberation to take legal action. Here, the email communications plainly do not fall within the scope of ARS Section 38-431.09B, as they were addressed to and principally directed at a quorum of the board. Additionally, the email communications consist of collective deliberations between Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez that propose the board take legal action on various matters. And then they cite to certain of the communications. This conclusion is in keeping with the legislature's directive that the open meeting law be construed in favor of open and public meetings. Accordingly, Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez violated the open meeting law by sending the email communications to a quorum of the board. The board's response also included instances where district staff member Andrea Gana was directed by Ms. Garcia to forward email communications to other board members. By directing Ms. Gana to forward these email communications to a quorum of the board, Ms. Garcia violated the open meeting law. The next is the section concerning confidential executive session information. Here, the metadata for the September 14, 2020 memorandum concerning efforts to diversify the district and the June 21st, 2021 memorandum concerning the termination of a district employee both contain confidential executive session information. The board provided metadata for both the September 14, 2020 memorandum and the June 21st, 2021 memorandum that shows that along with Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez, a person called Soaring Hawk also authored and or edited both of these memoranda. As of the date of this letter, Soaring Hawk is not a current or former board member and is otherwise not one of the persons or entities authorized to receive executive session information under ARS Section 38431.03b. Additionally, and of greater concern, it appears from the September 14, 2020 memorandum and the June 21st, 2021 memorandum, the members of the press and the public at large were copied on these memoranda. As stated above, confidential executive session information may not be released to any person or entity that's not listed in ARS Section 38431.03. Because Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez communicate and provided access to confidential executive session information to unauthorized persons, Ms. Garcia and Mr. Gonzalez individually violated ARS Section 38431.03b for both the September 14, 2020 memorandum and the June 21st, 2021 memorandum. The last section in the letter is the remedy. To remedy this violation, the office considered the readily available records, documented whether the board has had any recent open meeting law violations, the board's responses and documentation, the nature and scope of the violations found herein, and that board members Garcia and Gonzalez did not respond to or provide affidavits addressing the questions asked in the office's March 24th, 2021 inquiry letter. Having weighed these factors, and in order to resolve this matter, the office now requires that the board and relevant district staff attend an open meeting law training conducted by the Arizona Ombudsman, Citizens Aid, another pre-approved organization, or pre-approved attorney within 60 days of receipt of this letter. This open meeting law training should emphasize the confidential nature of executive session materials and the implications of using email and other technological communications involving board business. Evidence of completion of such training shall be provided to the office to be kept on file. Additionally, the board must share the contents of this violation letter, excluding any executive session information, with the public at the next practicable public meeting, and that is tonight. Any statement read to the public regarding this matter must be pre-approved by the office. The office has noted this occurrence as a violation, which will be considered in determining the response to any further open meeting law violations by the board and its current members. Further, any subsequent open meeting law violations by board members Garcia and Gonzalez proposing legal action to a quorum of the board via email and/or the disclosure of confidential executive session information will be considered knowing violations pursuant to ARS Section 38431.07a. That's the majority of the content of the letter. I left out parentheticals and footnotes in order to be expeditious in delivering the contents of this letter.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel, for reading those findings and sharing them with the board and at this public meeting. Dr. Sylvan, do you have any other comments? Mr. Sullivan.
I was going to say I'm not actually a
Mr.
doctor. So we have been in touch with the Office of the Arizona Ombudsman and are working on coordinating a scheduling for that training, and we'll certainly make sure we're in compliance with the remedy section of the Attorney General's letter.
Okay, thank you. And to be clear, we, as a board, we take all of these types of findings extremely seriously. This is a grave situation. Again, it's the duty of this board as elected officials for the responsibility, the accountability, and the professionalism of the operations and actions of the board, all keeping in mind for the greater good of the college. So I promise you all that we will continue with an even more robust training program through the Ombudsman and other training programs that will help us move forward as a board, especially regarding open meeting law. So thank you very much for coming, Ms. Siegel.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I believe we do have questions. Board Member Klinko.
Ms. Siegel, could you just explain, I mean, for the general public about the executive session and why the ARS allows for confidential information and the point of it and why a disclosure is significant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Klinko. In all of the states that have adopted a form of the open meeting law, there has been a recognition that while most and the majority of communications are to be open and transparent, there are real reasons for why you have closed executive sessions. And they are to allow deliberation on sensitive topics or topics that may become the subject of negotiations later on. An example is legal advice, giving direction to an attorney, giving direction to labor representatives, discussing employees and employee status or discipline. Those types of things reflect a recognition, those exceptions reflect a recognition by the legislature that some things have to be done behind closed doors. And that's why there are these exceptions in the Arizona open meeting law under the executive session exceptions.
Anyone else?
I don't have a.
Yes, Board Member Garcia.
So I would just want to read to your friends everything, to your enemies the law. What I want to state is that the violations that may have occurred was because I was trying to keep this college from getting sued. Okay. This administration has violated due process on employees. That's all we were attempting to try to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Garcia. Any other comments or questions for Ms. Siegel?
So, I mean, I
Board
just
Member
have,
Klinko?
yeah, I just have a general comment.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, I just have to articulate my, frankly, my outrage about the findings and the information detailed inside of it. You know, I served as the chair when this occurred, and it is deeply concerning. It's concerning because it constitutes a violation of the public trust. And we, as elected officials, have a responsibility to uphold the highest ethical standard for this institution, for our community, and the disclosure of confidential information that disempowers the institution, violating the open meeting law, it's unconscionable, and it erodes trust in this institution. And I ran for this board because this college was engulfed in issues of accountability and ethical questions of its ethical standards and practices. And for the entire duration of my time on this board, I have worked tirelessly to restore the institution's integrity. And I am so proud to have sat with various members of the community who served on this board to do that. And to see this, it really constitutes an undermining of all of that work. And it is just absolutely disgraceful because it's putting the institution itself at risk. And it's unacceptable. And I really appreciate the time.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, could I add one thing?
Yes,
So I was
go ahead.
just thinking about the comment that Ms. Garcia made. So if a board member has information that there's a serious problem at this college, we have a process for that information to be disclosed as outlined in the bylaws, all of which can be done without violating the open meeting law. So if there's ever a question by any board member about how to disclose information about a problem or a concern at Pima so that we can look into it, and we absolutely want board members to do that, we certainly have ways for that to happen without running any risk of an open meeting law violation.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvan. And again, just for those of you that may not know, this governing board, again, we have to self-govern. And we do have executive sessions that are behind closed doors. And it's for that very reason that we have to maintain communications, open communications during those meetings so that we can discuss topics that could be controversial or topics that are sensitive or perhaps apply to personnel. And the beauty of this board when I was elected at the time was that I thought this is one of the most diverse boards I've ever seen, at least in Pima County. And that diversity alone allows for open communication and differing thoughts, a difference in perhaps opinion and a different point of view. So this is why the executive board meetings are so important, so we can hear all of those thoughts, so we can get diverse points of view. And like Mr. Sylvan stated, there are very specific processes at this college. I mean, I'm trying desperately to follow parliamentary procedure here, but parliamentary procedure at these board meetings, and a lot of processes to put forth any kind of complaints. Those processes have to be followed for all of this to happen with transparency during the regular board meetings. So again, without further ado, I want to go back to the agenda, but also reiterate our promise as a board to make sure that we go forward with the necessary training and the seriousness of an issue such as this. Thank you.
Comment.
Oh, sorry, before we go on, Mr. Gonzalez would like to ask a question. Thanks.
Just a brief comment in reference to the discussion. As was stated, you are aware that one of the mentioned in reference to the process, just letting the public know too, is really following the bylaws. And the bylaws is one of the things to let the public know that this board is currently looking at very thoroughly, and hopefully making changes for the better, because I think those bylaws needs to be updated. I think the last time it was done was 3 years ago, but I think the board will come to a decision what's going to be the best reference to the outcome of the bylaws to follow clear, transparent policies, rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Gonzalez. I was just told that we need to take a short break because they're having technical difficulties with Zoom or something in this room. So we'll take please don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Can you hear me? Check. Check one. Good. We're back. So back to the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the comments by the members of the board. So I'm just going to basically start from left to right. Board member, that's next. Yes. So call to, or excuse me, comments by the board. We'll start from left to right. Board member Gonzalez.
Yes, good afternoon. Very little to report on, but I do want to acknowledge in reference to the, not only the faculty and staff, in reference to the closing of the college. I guess a lot of our students are doing their finals. I know 2 of my grandkids are. But more important, one of the things I want to emphasize is I know there's going to be a big celebration on the 18th. Is that correct? For the graduation? It's going to be at the Keno Stadium. I'm pretty sure a lot of our community is going to be there acknowledging our students, and that's one of the things that we have mentioned before is that being a community, but a community college reference to the people out there. I think it's going to be a great event. I do invite everybody to come over and recognize and let our young people and our old people too recognize them for their accomplishment, but more important, being successful and succeeding in one of the programs, of the many programs that we have here at Pima Community College. That's basically it for right now for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Gonzalez. Next, Board Member Garcia.
Okay, I just want to read a quote. Okay, I have a constituent who sent me this mug, and so I'm going to read what it says because I thought it was really nice. It is not the critics who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that the place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither victory nor defeat, who know victory nor defeat. That was by Theodore Roosevelt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Garcia, for those remarks. Next, Board Member Hay.
Congratulations to all the students who are graduating, and thank you to the faculty who helped them get there, and certainly to the administration as well in supporting the faculty and the staff. And have a great summer and a great graduation.
Board Member Klinko. Thank you, Dr. Hay.
Thank you very much, Chair Ripley. Again, congratulations to all of our students on their success and their future success in our community, and to all of the faculty and staff who strive and work in and out each day to achieve and help those students achieve their goals. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Klinko. And I have no further remarks at this time. I just want to reiterate that the graduation at Keno is going to be a great one, but there's also several more going on tomorrow, the veterans, aviation students, I think, as well. So if you can support, please come on out, don your regalia if you'd like, and we'll see you there. Thank you so much. So next on the agenda is the call to the audience. So first in line is Dr. Sylvia Lee, if you're on Zoom.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Ripley, members of the board, Chancellor Lambert, and guests. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Sylvia Lee, and I'm a native Tucsonan. My family has deep roots in this community. I'm a very proud graduate of PCC, U of A, and ASU. I've had 30 years experience in higher ed and worked at PCC as a dean and then campus president. I retired early from PCC to run for the governing board and started my 6-year term in January 2013. At that time, PCC was in very serious trouble due to a decade of neglect by the then Chancellor and governing board. The accreditation body, the Higher Learning Commission, placed PCC on probation in the spring of 2013. Failure to get off probation could mean that PCC would have to close its doors. Can you imagine this community without PCC? In July 2013, Chancellor Lea Lambert was hired to get the college off probation and make PCC a premier community college. The odds facing the college were insurmountable. The college had just lost all state funding. Lee and a dedicated team of administrators, faculty, staff worked incredibly hard to get PCC off probation, which happened in 2017. By the way, PCC is now a premier community college thanks to Lee and many, many others. Now, here we are almost 10 years since being placed on probation, risking everything we have worked so hard to accomplish due to an insidious cancer that has continued to grow and fester since 2013, when Lea Lambert was hired. A small group of individuals have made it their mission to get rid of Lee and destroy the college. They would argue that they are trying to save the college. They wrote a letter to the accreditation body stating that PCC should not get off probation. When Lee and others were interviewed for the chancellor position in 2013, they gave each candidate a letter stating they should all withdraw their names from consideration because this small group wanted their own person to serve in that role so they could control the college. Almost 10 years later, this is still their end game. Fire Chancellor Lambert, hire their own person, gain control of the college's destiny. God help our college and this community if that ever happens. There are 2 individuals that are part of this insidious cancer sitting on the PCC board today. These 2 individuals, as we heard, were found by the Attorney General's office to have violated open meeting law. This insidious cancer is spreading, and it's up to us that love PCC and our community to make sure they do not succeed. Now I say to Luis Gonzalez and Maria Garcia, resign from the PCC governing board immediately. Do the right thing for PCC and our community. Thank you.
And you were bought off, weren't you?
Thank you for those comments, Dr. Lee. Next on our public comment registration is Sandra Wilson. Sandra Wilson, are you there? Maybe I'm pronouncing. Sandra Wilson, are you there? Okay, we can hold off and skip to Callum Jeffrion. Yeah, is there is there a problem, Dan? We seem to be frozen. I don't know if anyone can hear us even.
Your audio is perfect.
Oh, I see people coming up. Is Sandra Wilson on the screen? I can't see.
She
Okay.
was on earlier, but I don't currently see her now.
What? Okay, and Callum Jeffrion? No? How about, let's see, we'll go next. Michaela Hayes. Yeah, I think
Hello,
we're having.
I'm here.
Okay, we have a winner. Okay, Michaela, you have the floor.
Good evening, Chair Ripley, Chancellor, board members, colleagues, and guests. My name is Michaela Hayes. I'm math faculty, Pima Online Department Head, and PCC EA President. The class and comp study has been the focus topic for most of my public comments this year, and today is no different. I want to start by acknowledging that in several public forums, administration has assured employees that no one will be paid less next year in the new structures, and that should initial contracts for the year not be issued on the new salary schedule, the back pay will be issued for any difference at the time of new contracts. Also in the budget proposal later tonight, monies have been set aside to pay for adjustments, and there has been a commitment that each person should see some sort of increase next year rather than just remaining at the same rate. We appreciate those commitments. I also want to thank Dr. B and the HR team for listening to faculty input and taking the Faculty Steering Committee's suggestions seriously. Because of this, I am much more confident in the outcome of this study. Even though we don't have a finalized schedule yet, it will be a better product for it. It's very unfortunate that we do not have a final salary schedule or policy on placement or movement to share with faculty today, as a majority of their contracts end next week. Unless we send at least some partial information out early next week, faculty beyond the steering committee will not have had any opportunity to provide feedback on this new structure and will be surprised by a new salary offer in June. PCCEA hopes that enough information can be shared before the end of contracts so that faculty will have an idea of what is to come and will be comfortable with this course of action. There are still many details to work out, such as the actual salary schedule, along with objective rules and guidelines for placement and movement. There are also more conversations to be had next year, like pay and hard to hire disciplines. Also, policy language still needs to be written surrounding all of these changes and sent out for comment following the AERC process. Faculty on the steering committee have worked hard to get feedback to the consultants at each stage of this process in a timely manner, asking clarifying questions as necessary so that we could be confident in the direction we were moving. This could prove quite frustrating as answers were not readily available to many questions, and often we had to ask the same questions multiple times over multiple meetings to understand the proposals we were supposed to be deciding between. This lack of response to our questions led to delays that I believe are a good part of what put us in the position we are now in. I share this in the interest of transparency. I want the board to know that while I do see an effort of collaboration by the college, it has been a difficult and frustrating process at times to get necessary answers, especially when those answers needed to come from the consultants. After all that, I want to reiterate, I do believe that we will end up with a decent product at the end of this for faculty, and I do believe our input is being heard and incorporated. Also, I want to say that I can only speak from my experience on the Faculty Steering Committee, and I do not speak for the staff as they're on a separate committee. I know the board has a lot on your plate right now, and I wanted to express my gratitude for the effort being made to keep an eye on the overall budget as well as the class and comp study, as well as everything else you are looking at. So thank you so much. Your efforts are appreciated.
Thank you very much, Michaela, for your remarks. I'll go back to see if Sandra Wilson is on board. Okay, and Callum Jeffrey on. Okay, next is Sabi Andino. Sabi Andino?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Can
go
you hear
ahead.
me? Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, Board of Governors and President Dore. Thank you for the opportunity to share my great experience as a parent of a Vail Early Education former student. My son, a young Latino, Emmanuel Fuentes, graduated in the first class of Vail Early Education. He is about to graduate. Thanks for the opportunity of PCC opening its doors at the East Campus. He was able to do a whole year with college level. He was also granted the Lumberjacks Scholarship at NAU, being able to study tuition-free. But he's not only a successful story. I would like to brag about my dear good friend Kemuel Agosto, who is now a sophomore at U of A, and he started to take his math classes at Pima Community College in his sophomore year in high school. I am pleased to tell you that Kemuel has been offered at Raytheon a paid internship as a system engineering. And all of this is for the great opportunity to have young students start at Pima Community College and advance in their careers. All of this is possible thanks to the visionary leadership of Chancellor Lea Lambert and all the administrators and great faculty that we have at Pima Community College. Thank you for the Board of Governors for the support. There's a lot more and great things that are happening at Pima Community College. And this is the time to continue moving forward and supporting our community, our students, our city, our county, and the state of Arizona through Pima Community College. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, those are moving and beautiful remarks, and what a great, amazing success story. Thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. We do need to hear more of that during these challenging times. Thank you so much. Take care. Next we have on the list Isaac Figueroa.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for the time. I'm actually, my name is Isaac Figueroa. I am a real estate developer here in Tucson with Larson Baker, and I also sit on the board of the foundation, Pima Community College Foundation. I'm also a native Tucsonan, first generation. My mom is from Mexico. She moved here, single mother with 5 kids, and got her degree from U of A and began teaching and had a long career teaching Spanish at Pima Community College. I grew up around both U of A campus and Pima College. I went to Pima College. I actually went to high school at Pima College at Aztec Middle College, which was a joint venture between TUSD and Pima College, where even though I was a dropout at the beginning of high school, I turned my life around and got caught up and was able to do that because of this joint partnership with Pima College and Aztec Middle College to graduate on time. Finished my associate's degree at Pima College while working at Pima College as a student service tech. Then I went to the U of A, graduated from the U of A. Once I graduated, I went and worked again for Pima College as an advanced student service specialist, both for the county and the Workforce Investment Act and for the college. Before going on to get into real estate and commercial real estate development, which is what I do now. All that to be said, that I have a very, very intimate knowledge of Pima College from a very young age, and I can say resoundingly that Dr. Lea Lambert has been an amazing, amazing influence on the college. I have seen a night and day difference from both being an employee there, being a student, and just the overall direction of the college and how it's, and then even now from a different lens of being a real estate developer where economic development itself is part of my expertise. The Pima Community College is an amazing partner now for the greater region as far as training workforce and everything else. And I attribute that to the great, to Lea Lambert, as well as a lot of really great members on the Board of Governors, as well as amazing staff and employees. So I am just here to show my support and, to make a comment. I think that violating any kind of rules that are supposed to be, part of being part of an elected position, incompetence shouldn't be excused for any reason besides, fear of death or something like that, So that being said, I'll end it there. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Figueroa, for your comments as well. Next, we have on the list Mr. Edmund Marquez.
Hi there, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. My name is Edmund Marquez. Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be reading a letter from 133 different community leaders in our community. This is to the Governing Board of Directors, Pima Community College, in regards to the future direction of Pima Community College. Dear Governing Board members, we recently learned that Chancellor Lambert is being considered for a position at another community college district in Ventura, California. As business, community, and elected leaders, we want to express our concerns as to what this could mean for the positive momentum the college has experienced over the last 9 years, and urge the Governing Board to continue to embrace and support these new directions. Chancellor Lambert began at Pima when the college was under academic probation, and we appreciate his work also making needed changes leading to Pima being named one of the top community colleges in the country by the prestigious Aspen Institute. The college's pivot to offering short-term credentials and fast-track programs to meet the need for technically skilled workers for our region's growing industries is an example of a higher education institution moving at the speed of business to respond to changing workforce needs. Our workforce today must be highly adaptable, collaborative, digitally literate, and able to acquire new skills over a lifetime of work. Traditional methods of higher education and workforce training are becoming irrelevant for a young mobile workforce who bring on debt, embrace different pathways of learning, and through digital and remote platforms can learn anywhere, anytime. Chancellor Lambert wisely saw this trend years ago and has been positioning the college to meet this new reality. Innovative and visionary partnerships with our region's leading employers such as we applaud the Governing Board for supporting new facilities such as the newly opened Automotive Technology Advanced Manufacturing Center, which will open next year. The community's Proposition 481, modernizing a 40-year-old formula that limited colleges' expenditures. This now gives PCC the flexibility to adjust spending priorities to react to the fast-changing needs of Pima students and employers. Pima is on the right path and has become a critically important asset to the region's economic growth. New leadership could stall the success Pima has seen in nearly a decade. Let's please not lose Pima's momentum. Respectfully, Paula Bout, former Arizona State Senator, Louis Albert, Professor, Arizona State University, former PCC campus president, Kathy Alexander from the University of Phoenix, Michael and Susan Anderson from WeBuyHouses.com, Michael, Zach, and Danya Anderson, WeBuyHouses.com, Dr. Roger B. Anderson, DMD, Linda Arzamanian, former Pima County School Superintendent, retired, Odette Augustine, Angela Borley from Affinity Wealth Management, Danette Booley, CEO of Tucson Airport Authority, Andrew Bergensmith, an entertainment consultant, Bill Buckmaster, Buckmaster Communications, LLC, Jennifer Lee Carroll, author, Rob Kaler, Kaler Design and Construction, Swain Chapman, Commercial Real Estate, Jack Clements, Hub International, Jim Click Automotive, Judy Klinko, Catalina In-Home Services, Dan Coogan, Coogan and Martin, Jerry Dixon, the Gadsden Company, Rob Elias from the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Ali Farhang from Farhang and Metcalf, Brad Fader from Simply Bits, Natalie Fernandez-Lee from Meridian Health Management, Ray Flores from Flores Concepts and C. Charro Restaurants, Susan Fernano, Arts Consultant, David Garcia, Onyx Creative, Felipe Garcia, President and CEO of Visit Tucson, Kristen Garcia Hernandez, Girl Scouts of Southern Arizona, Dr. Linnell Gardner, Gene Goldstein, Architect, Anna Grief, CEO, JobPath, Michael Guyman, CEO of the Tucson Metro Chamber of Commerce, Mark Hanna, former PCC Governing Board Member, Brian Hanley, the Innova Group PCC Foundation Board Chair, Jane Henninger, HR Consultant, retired, Ted Herman, Larson Baker, Dr. Thomas Hicks, MD, Margaret Higgins, The Haven, Kate Hoffman, Earn to Learn, Mark Irvin of Mark Irvin Commercial Real Estate Services, PCC Foundation Board Member, Ross Iwamoto, founder from First Director of Southern Arizona Japanese Cultural Coalition, Nancy Johnson, the CEO of El Rio Health, Dan Jones from Madden Media, Julie Katzel, Assistant Vice President of Community Relations with the University of Arizona, Bill Kelly, Diamond Ventures, Barry Kate, Whirly Gig Properties, Daryl Koppel, Jim Click Automotive, Adriana Cong Romero, Bank of America.
Excuse me,
Doc
Edmund.
Cret-
Excuse me, Edmund. You've gone over 3 minutes, but we're going to extend your time for another minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. Doc Cret, DK Advocates, Becky Kuker, former PCC Foundation board member, Kimber Lanning, founder and CEO, Local First Arizona, George Larson, Larson Baker, Angie Liscardis, Arizona Community Foundation, Penny Lee, PCC retired, Sylvia Lee, former PCC board member, Jan Lesher, Pima County Administrator, Karen Lunda, ergonomic consultant, Paul Lindsay, former PCC board member, Umberto and Zarina Lopez, HSL Properties, Lisa Lavallo, Southern Arizona Market President, Cox Communications, Larry Lucero, Steve Lynn, Mariana Maddox, Yvette Marie Margayan, me, Edmund Marquez. I'm the chair of the Tucson Metro Chamber and former PCC Foundation board chair. Lea Marquez Peterson, chairwoman of the Arizona Corporation Commission. Doug Martin, Good News Communication. Grace Quiroz Marum of the CTSO. Carrie Maslin with U of A. Ted Maxwell with the Southern Arizona Leadership Council. Nancy McClure, Ian McDowell of SUNT, Kat Merrill of JobPath, Lisa Miller, City of Tucson, Christine Hazen Molina, Linda Morales, Rich Moret, Gina Murphy Darling, Shannon Murphy, David and Patrice Paget, Tony Penn, United Way of Tucson and Southern Arizona. Let's see, Kathy Prather, J-Ted, Barbie Reuter, Pikor, Judy Rich, TMC. It goes on and on. Tucson Mayor Regina Romero. And there's more and more and more. There's so much support for Lee Lambert. It's kind of ridiculous for even having to defend him at this point. Lee Lambert is amazing for our community. We need to keep him here. We need to make sure that we're doing what's best for the greater good of our community, period.
Thank you so much, Edmund, for your remarks.
Chair Ripley, what I'd like to do is I have a copy of the remarks, and I'd like to submit it for the record, which will go into our board record as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Lea Marquez Peterson.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I want to lend my full support to the letter that Edmund just read, but also speak kind of from the heart that I've known Lee Lambert since he applied for this position. I was honored to be on the recruiting nomination committee that was selecting him and looking at all the different candidates. And even at that point, I was serving as president of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber at the time. It was clear to see what a visionary leader Lee was then, and we've seen that applied to Southern Arizona since his leadership began. I want to put my full support behind Chancellor Lee Lambert. I hope that he continues to stay in Southern Arizona, continues to lead, and continues the great relationships that he has built with the business community, specific to workforce development. We know that we've now coming out of this COVID pandemic, and we're in a tough spot in terms of employment. As small businesses, as large companies throughout the community, we need a key relationship with Pima Community College, and Lee has done an incredible job in building partnerships and strategic relationships throughout Southern Arizona. So I'm just here to show my full support behind Lee Lambert. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez Peterson, for those remarks as well. And with that, I think we're at the end of the call to the audience. Next on the agenda is governing board recognition and or awards, and I will hand this over to Dr. Dolores Duran Cerda.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chair Ripley, members of the board, Dr. Duray, representing Chancellor Lee Lambert, colleagues and guests. This is such a wonderful season for us. The spring season brings a lot of celebration and acknowledgements and recognition of all of the hard work that has taken place by our students, by our faculty, our staff, and administrators. Tonight, I feel honored to be recognizing, on behalf of the college, several people from their students, and there are community members and also employees who have received outstanding awards or recognitions. So I will read the names and what they are receiving, and let's all think of them and applaud them if we want to, publicly or mentally, for all of their accomplishments. So I will start first with our students. Andrea Salazar Calderon, who was selected as the 2022 All-USA Coca-Cola New Century Transfer Scholar and placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the district office. Maximus Luebaños, selected as the 2022 Coca-Cola Bronze Scholar and placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the West Campus. Hannah Irwin, selected as a 2022 Coca-Cola Silver Scholar and placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the district office. Rachel Gravina, placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the Desert Vista campus. Haliana Pilier, placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the downtown campus. Danielle Ostrop, placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the East Campus. We also have Angela Ho, placed on the first team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the Northwest Campus. Michelle Dashiell, placed on the second team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the East Campus. Next, we have Genesis Benedict, placed on the second team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the Northwest Campus. Jacqueline Wirt, placed on the second team of the 2022 All-Arizona Academic Team for the West Campus. We also have Webster Rose, winner of the 2021 Award for Excellence in E-Learning, Outstanding E-Learning Student Award from the Instructional Technology Council. And if I'm correct, I believe Webster Rose is going to be our commencement speaker in a few days. So that'll be exciting to hear from him directly. And we have Luke Hunt, Pima alumnus. Film Sheep was selected as the 2021 winner for Best Indigenous Voices Narrative at the Montana International Film Festival. So that completes our list of our students who are receiving recognitions, and let's applaud them for their accomplishments and their hard work in such a difficult time in this history with COVID and social unrest and all the competitions of life that it brings. So our next group is going to be our community members that we would also like to recognize for their outstanding contributions. We'll start with Erica Quintero Eras, Pima Theater alumnus, awarded the 2021 Teacher of the Year Award at the Arizona State Thespian Festival for her work as a theater educator at South Point Catholic High School. We have Erin Donahue, Pima alumnus, clothing line featured in the Sustainable Fashion Week US lineup. Also, we have Justin Haugen, Pima alumnus, presenter at the 2021 Shutterfest Conference. And Vanessa Saavedra, Pima alumnus, featured as the cover art in a Mexican gallery exhibit, Las Iluministas. She was also featured in Pink Collar Gallery at the UK and Pima's website regarding her artwork that speaks against femicide. These are wonderful contributions. Let's give them also a warm round of applause to our community members. And the last category is employees, our wonderful employees at the college, and I am delighted to also be recognizing them tonight. To start, we have David Arellano, one of 24 community college leaders nationwide, chosen for the National Community College Hispanic Council's Leadership Fellows Program for 2021. Jason Brown, serving second term on the National Research Advisory Board for the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. Stacy Naughton, certified as a curriculum administrator and catalog manager by software vendor Modern Campus. Stephen Ebel, awarded the Illumin Helping Hand Award from Illumination. Priscilla Nguyen, accepted as a board member to the Wellness Council of Arizona. Dorothy Netherland received the Personal Achievement Award from the Wellness Council of Arizona, part of the Champions of Worksite Wellness. Anne Marie Condes, awarded the 2021 College Educator Award for Excellence in Teaching by by the Southern Arizona section of the American Chemical Society. Kim Lisa Duchisella, recognized as a 2021 Outstanding E-Learning Educator from the Instructional Technology Council. And we have 3 recognitions for Antui Nguyen. First, featured in an article by Art and Seek about her work featured in RO2 Art Gallery in Dallas's exhibit. What does it mean to be visible? Also for Antui Nguyen, photographs were featured at the Tucson Museum of Art 4x4 exhibit. And also prints displayed in the Welcome to the Machine Experimentation and Abstraction exhibit at the Bonding Photography Triennial in Bandung, Indonesia. And most recently, Antui's I Will Come Home 2 print was featured at the Houston Center for Photography as part of the Learning Curve 14 exhibit in Houston, Texas. These prints are examples of unique photograms. We also have Alexander Tenster, planned and performed in the Ukrainian Emergency Relief Benefit Concert, from which 100% of the funds went to the Hungarian Reformed Church Aid, offering humanitarian assistance in Ukraine. Noé Badillo accepted to present a paper on Giordano Bruno at the 19th Annual International Society for Neoplatonic Studies Conference in Athens, Greece. We also have Ernesto Esquer, featured in the Andrew Smith Gallery's fall exhibit and the grand opening of the gallery space in Barrio Viejo. Hiro Tashima selected to have his ceramic sculpture, the Yellow Banana Kong, shown at the Mino International Ceramic Festival in Japan. Also for Hiro, selected to have his ceramic work displayed at Yoshiaki Inoue Gallery in, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Shinisabashi, Osaka, Japan. We also have Darla Aguilar, elected president of the Arizona chapter of the National Organization for Student Success. And finally, we have the CLT Online Project Team, awarded the Excellence in the E-Learning Award for Culinary 130 Savory Cuisine 1 from the Instructional Technology Council. Please join me in giving them a round warm of applause to our employees. So you can see this amazing list of students, community members, and our employees who have received such wonderful recognition for their contributions to scholarly work and to benefit the college and our students as a whole. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Duran Cerda, for that incredible piece of information. I mean, what superstars we have right here now and in the past and in the future. Thanks so much. Next on the agenda, we will move on to our reports section. First,
One moment, Chairperson.
Yes,
We
go ahead.
actually have the faculty emeritus that I'm going to be presenting as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Please,
Yes.
excuse me, go ahead.
That's okay. So again, it's an honor for me to present our faculty emeritus recognitions, and we have the faculty emeriti here with us as part of the panelists. So as a former faculty member, everyone can imagine how special and meaningful it is for me to be recognizing our former faculty and faculty emeritus now. So the governing board confers emeritus status on distinguished individuals retired from the college to signify honor and respect for outstanding accomplishments and contributions to the college over many years. Faculty and administrators receiving such an award exemplify the characteristics of ideal community college educators who, through their professional careers at Pima College, have contributed significantly to their discipline, to student success, professional organizations, their campuses, and the Pima community. Emeritus nominations come from the Faculty Senate and the Chancellor's Executive Leadership Team, who forward recommended nominations to the governing board for approval. Faculty emeriti receive several benefits, such as a tuition waiver, a lifetime email, and a library card that gives them the same access and privileges at the Pima College Library as a full-time faculty. Also, they will be receiving their beautiful frame certificates in the mail. I don't know if you all received it yet, but if you haven't, it's coming. So I am pleased to announce the following 2022 faculty who have been awarded emeritus status at Pima Community College. And they are Scott Collins from the Math Department, who has been at the college since 1994 and completed in 2022. Christina Felty from the Visual Arts Department, and her years of service were from 1995 to 2017. Sylvia Kolchens, Chemistry Department, years of service from 1995 to 2021. Nikki Lewandowski from the Math Department, her years of service from 1991 to 2018. Mark Nelson from the Music Department, served from 2000 to 2021. And Mike Tweeten from the Biology Department, served from 1988 to 2021. So please join me in congratulating these wonderful faculty emeriti. We are so proud of your accomplishments and everything that you've done as a legacy for Pima Community College. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, and congratulations once again. Thank you so much, Dr. Duran-Cerda, for such joyful news. Thank you. Next, we finally will go on to reports. With that, the first report will be administration report by Dr. Nick Richmond, the status of strategic priorities.
Chair Ripley, members of the board, Dr. Doré, colleagues and guests, it's my pleasure to be here this evening to provide an update on the status of Pima's strategic priorities. Approximately a year ago, the college approved a new mission fulfillment framework. And of course, within that, we have the mission statement, which is so vital, identifying the institution as an open admissions institution, serving the community within Pima County. But when we think about the college's strategic priorities, we're more focused around the vision of the institution and the purpose. As we seek to be a premier community college and improve the way in which we fulfill our purpose of transforming lives through affordable education, we need to engage in substantial, meaningful progress, often with projects that stretch over a number of years to see them to full completion. These priorities are outlined through three major plans. First, the strategic plan, approved by the governing board unanimously 1 year ago. And then also from a few years further back, we have the facilities and the education master plans. And it's my purpose today to share with you an update on some of the key priorities within these different plans. And I should note now, and I'll mention some individuals later, but I'm speaking as a representative for a wide group of people. Many different units, many different individuals are directly involved in these different projects. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who've been involved in this work for their efforts. Before we talk about the priorities though, I would like to touch briefly on some of the college's institutional key performance indicators. We use a number of metrics to monitor the performance of the college, and what we're looking at here are the 2-year progress measures from the Voluntary Framework of Accountability. These are lagging indicators where we identify new students to the institution, and then we monitor their progress and outcomes over the course of 2 years. And what we hope to see over time is an increase in their successful progress and completion, and a decrease in those measures that indicate a lack of success. What you see in the chart here are the results for the cohort starting from fall 2012 through to fall 2019. Now, in some areas, there are positives that we can celebrate. To pick a couple of examples, fall to next term retention rate is shown in the dark blue line towards the top of this chart. And it's fluctuated over time. It's increased a little bit, it's dropped a little bit. But for the fall 2019 students, we see a fairly significant increase in the proportion of students continuing from fall into spring, which is really encouraging to see. In addition, if you look at the gray line running through the center of the chart, this represents those students who are still enrolled in their second year. And this has increased from about 38% up to 44% over the course of the time period that we see here. In other areas, there are metrics that need maybe a little bit more attention, though in some respects, these are impacted directly by the pandemic. So if you look at the lowermost line here in pink, this is a proportion of those new students who completed a certificate or degree within their first 2 years. This, of course, is a really important metric for the institution as we work to improve completion rates as part of the Achieve 60 Arizona initiative. Back in fall 2012, 5.6% of starting students completed within 2 years. That increased to 11.5% by fall 2018. Unfortunately, we see a decline for those students who started in fall 2019, and this is most likely impacted by the pandemic. This is an area that we need to look to understand so we can support student completion moving forward. So these are some of the metrics that we look to, but let's talk about some of those key priorities that we're working on to help improve these progress and outcomes measures. The first I'd like to highlight is from the Education Master Plan, and these are the Center of Excellence projects. Here you see some photos and images showing progress to date. What you have in the upper left is the Aviation Technology Center. Alongside that, we have the Advanced Manufacturing Building. And then across the bottom, we have the West Campus Science Labs and a plan for the Health Profession Center of Excellence. And as you can see here, there is lots of activity and there's significant development underway. On this slide, I'm sharing information on the status of these different projects and the anticipated completion date. So aviation technology completion is expected in June 2022, so very soon now, just a month away. And we have other progress that we expect to complete during the course of this year and then into future years. I won't read all of the details here, but you can see that there are a number of things across the Advanced Manufacturing Building, the West Campus Science Labs, and other areas where we anticipate significant advances in the facilities available for our programs as we progress through the year. I would like to thank Dr. Dore and his team and the facilities team for providing the updates that I'm sharing with you today on this. In particular, Ernie Federico, who provide the detailed information on the completion status. Next up, I would like to touch on guided pathways. This is a major initiative in the academic area of the institution, and it's been implemented in part over the course of a number of years, reflected in the current strategic plan with major milestones for this year, next year, and the following year. For the current year milestones, these are the status figures that you see reported here. 3 of the milestones are fully complete. Another is 75% complete. This is the final one in the table, to place all new to higher education learners on a planner by the end of their first semester. This is always a work in progress. There has been 100% outreach to all new to higher education students, and the current status is that 75% of them are on a planner by the end of that first semester. For one of these items is still in progress, and this is the item to provide detailed information to web systems for the college website about guided pathways. During the first year work on this item, it was determined that because of limited staff time in web systems, in order to do this correctly, it would be necessary to engage with an external group to support the work. So this one will take a little bit more time. This is an example of the college adjusting timelines slightly to reflect available resources to ensure we can do these projects right, as opposed to rushing them or trying to complete them without the full resources that we need. And I'd like to give my thanks to Dr. Dolores Duran-Cerda and Wendy Weeks for providing the update on guided pathways. Finally, I'd like to touch on the overall strategic plan progress for year 1. Now, year 1, of course, is not yet complete. That will end on June 30th of this year. And our current status is 83% complete. We anticipate that many more of these items will be fully complete by the end of June. Among the priorities included in year 1 are the development of 3 new major college-wide plans. This includes the Strategic Enrollment Management Plan, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan, and also the college's first Climate Action and Sustainability Plan. There are also initiatives related to open educational resources to reduce the cost to students of textbooks and other course materials, and also work to prioritize high quality customer service and learner engagement in everything that we do. I'm not going to talk in detail about these specific priorities in the interest of time, but I would like to note that there is a detailed update on open educational resources in the accompanying executive summary available within the board materials, and my thanks to Josie Milligan for providing that update. In terms of next steps, there are many things that are going to be underway next year related to the strategic priorities. First, we received recommendations from an external consultant on the education and facilities master plans. Those recommendations were discussed at the Futures Conference just a few weeks ago, and it's anticipated that by December of this year, we will bring forward final recommendations of new actions and adjustments to those two master plans. Also, as mentioned, we have 3 new college-wide plans that will be going into effect over the summer and running into the next few years. And then finally, we have some additional strategic plan priorities that will be completed during the year. This includes rebuilding lender-facing and community-facing processes to make the college a easier and simpler organization with which students can engage.
Dr. Richmond, you have about a minute left.
Okay, thank you. We'll also be implementing reverse transfer. This is a means through which students and learners can earn an award from Pima by leveraging the credits that they complete after they transfer to another institution. And then also we're looking to expand completion points. We know that for many of our students, they're not necessarily looking for a Pima degree or certificate. They may be looking for an industry credential that enables them to move into the career that's of interest to them. So we're looking to expand completion points to reflect those meaningful awards and qualifications that students can earn by attending classes with Pima. And with that, that concludes the summary that I have for this evening, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richmond. Any questions from the board? Yes, Board Member Garcia.
Yes. Dr. Richmond, can you please go to one of your slides at the very beginning where you state that on the Centers of Excellence, you have something about the architect has been let's see. Selected downtown campus hotel properties, architect selection complete. How can that be when it's on our agenda for a consent agenda right now?
That's an excellent question.
No, so the answer is that the selection committee did its part. There is the preferred vendor, and tonight what's coming to you is approval to enter a contract with that vendor. So it is true that the process completed and that the preferred vendor was selected. It's also true that it's on the agenda tonight for the board to authorize entering an agreement with that particular architect. Does that help clarify it?
But it doesn't say that on our paper.
It's on the.
There was selected. It says that it's delegating authority.
Which item number?
Right. So, well, so we could, to clarify, the selection process happened. There is a preferred architect that the college would like to enter a contract with, and the item on the agenda, I believe it's in the consent agenda for tonight, is for the board to authorize the chancellor or designee to proceed with completing a contract with the architect that was the top selection from the process. Does that clarify?
It's clear to me now, but I would appreciate it, though, if for transparency reasons, those things would be listed on here to be explained.
Point of order, Ms. Garcia, those items are listed on the consent agenda, and all of the subsequent documents are posted on the website.
Any other questions for Dr. Richmond? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Richmond, for that. Strategy is really important for our foundation so we can move on and do what we're meant to do here. Next report is coming from Marty Macias, overview of employee complaint process. Marty?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Do you want me to start off, Marty, or do you want to go? Well, let me just, so Marty Macias is an investigator in the Office of Dispute Resolution. Before she was at Pima, she spent a substantial part of her career as a civil rights investigator for the state of Arizona. investigating housing, employment, and other discrimination claims, and then spent a significant amount of time at the City of Tucson doing similar work. From time to time, individuals have raised questions or concerns about whether there's discrimination at Pima. How do we look into that? Is there an effective complaint process? So we thought it'd be helpful for Marty to provide an overview, a little bit of context about that, and I have some other data that I thought might be helpful to share. Oh, and Marty, if you want that report or chart displayed, please let us know and we can put it up on the screen.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you, Jeff. You actually just gave most of my presentation, but that's okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for requesting something from ODR. As Jeff said, I am the investigator for Pima College's Office of Dispute Resolution, and the Office of Dispute Resolution was established in 2014 at the permission of Chancellor Lambert as a centralized source for filing complaints, concerns, inquiries of any kind from any member of the community. Pardon me. The college offers various ways for individuals to file complaints, from phone calls to an online hotline database, email. There's no barrier for someone if they think that they have a concern that the college needs to look at. As Jeff previously stated, I began as a civil rights investigator in 1997, working for the Civil Rights Division of the Arizona Attorney General's Office. I was trained by assistant attorneys general who are exceptional at what they do. And in 2005, I hired on with the City of Tucson as their investigator in the Office of Equal Opportunity Programs. In both of those positions, as Jeff said, I investigated housing, employment, and public accommodation discrimination complaints. In January of 2019, I accepted my position with Pima College as their second investigator in the Office of Dispute Resolution, ODR, another acronym for us to keep in our memories. I received my training there and direction from former investigator Ross Estavillo, who is responsible for the success of ODR. He established the processes for addressing every type of complaint we receive, and I am committed to making sure that those processes are kept in place, as well as helping others in the college understand and follow those processes. I assure you that I know what I'm doing. I carefully review and conduct concerns, complaints, inquiries from any member of the community, and I will conduct an investigation if I have sufficient basis for doing so. For the purposes of this meeting, I don't mind telling you that I am one of the best civil rights investigators in Tucson. I don't play favorites. I don't tamper with evidence, and I don't misrepresent the facts. Part of ODR's responsibility is to memorialize the complaints we receive. Using the database that those go into, we prepare quarterly reports for General Counsel to review when requested, and of course, when Chancellor Lambert makes a request for information and statistics. I conducted a search of the complaints for fiscal year 2020 and 2021, and of the 100 complaints in that year, 9 of them had mention of the word discrimination, and of those 9, 1 was forwarded to our Title IX staff, 1 was from an anonymous complainant, and the evidence collected did not refute or support the allegations. 1 was outside of the college's jurisdiction, and 6 were from individuals who did not respond to requests for more information, or the information did not support the allegations that they made. ODR has determined that there is no pattern of discrimination against women or men or members of any protected category. What is evident is a practice of individuals making allegations against others and then refusing to cooperate with an investigation. What we've found is that some individuals are under the impression that they can make allegations against someone, but not present the specifics that could be investigated. They expect that whatever they say will be used to exact adverse action against the accused person. Guilty until proven innocent is not this college's way of addressing concerns. Anyone accused of discrimination or any other violation of a college policy is entitled to and will receive due process, and this cannot occur when complainants refuse to cooperate. Our concern is whether the individuals who make accusations but refuse to cooperate with investigations, whether they will be held accountable for their actions. Our office will investigate when we have the required information and cooperation from a complainant, and we report only facts that can be supported. Thank you for your time. If there are any questions or comments, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Marty. Any questions or comments from the board? No?
So I do just
Yes,
have
board
just a
member.
clarifying question. I just want to, you said something that I think is just so, at the very end, that's just so important, and I just want to hear it again, about the importance of individuals who are bringing forward concerns and the necessity, per our institutional policies and our employee handbook, for them to share the details of the incident so an investigation can happen. And
Yes, sir.
I think what you said was so clear, is that we have to have due process, and people are not guilty until proven innocent in the context of this institution. And there really has to be evidence, and then an investigation is conducted, and the facts are the facts. I just think it's so important. So I really appreciate you articulating that so clearly, because so often this board hears complaints that are just allegations with unsubstantiated evidence, and some people on this board take that as fact. And it's so important that the process exists, and I'm just so appreciative that you are here and continue to lead this office with integrity, investigating these concerns and ensuring that the truth comes forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Sylvan.
I was going to say, would you mind indulging me for just like a minute?
Sure.
Andre, can you put up that one chart? So what I wanted to show is, one thing, of course, none of this means that things are perfect at Pima, and there aren't instances where people do engage in wrongful conduct. That clearly happens. What hopefully comes across is we have a way to deal with that, and it's imperative, as noted, that people come forward with the specifics so we can really dive in and figure out what the appropriate remedy is. Nope, not that one. Sorry. The one thing I wanted to show was there are times when individuals feel that the most appropriate thing to do is to make a charge of discrimination with an outside agency, and that could either be the state of Arizona or the Federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And what I wanted to do was just show you what the statistics for that look like for the last 5 years, is to provide a little context. So first, I have to go, can we make that bigger? So first, it's worth noting, if you combine our regular employees, adjunct faculty, and temporary employees, we're talking well over 2,000 individuals. So it's not surprising that in a given year, someone is dissatisfied enough to want to make a complaint. There we go. So like I said, I thought it'd be helpful just for context again to show. So that this is what's happened for the last few years when people have gone outside the college. So what this chart shows you is each year how many charges were filed, what the basic category of the complaint was, whether the case is closed or pending, and then most importantly, whether the agency made a finding adverse to Pima or not. And in each case, there was no adverse finding. In other words, an outside agency, someone completely unassociated with Pima, investigated and did not find that there had been discrimination or retaliation at Pima College. So I just thought it'd be helpful to show that the results here hopefully help provide some confidence that there's not a significant problem at Pima and that we are resolving issues, and it's only in a rare instance when someone goes outside of the college, and when they do, this is what happens.
Yes, Board Member Klinko.
Thank you, Chair Ripley. So, Mr. Sullivan, could you just re-articulate again very clearly for anyone who's listening who doesn't feel like our process is adequate, where they can go to file complaints? What are these offices and how can they bring forward a complaint? Because this board has continually said, we welcome concerns and we encourage people who feel or see anything going on in this institution that they feel is inappropriate to bring forward their concerns, bring forward their complaints, go through the process, and if they don't feel the process is adequate, to now they can seek outside intervention. So could you just very clearly, for the record, just state what those options are?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And I guess just one other thing worth mentioning, I totally appreciate why it's an uncomfortable thing for someone to do, to come forward and make an allegation like that. No question it's uncomfortable. Retaliation is not allowed at Pima College. We would take disciplinary action against someone who retaliates, so hopefully that provides some assurance. And it's also why we have an independent office like ODR. So Office of Dispute Resolution is not part of any business unit. It reports to General Counsel and ultimately to the Chancellor. So they're not part of a reporting chain. So anyone who has a concern or a complaint and they don't know where to go, the best place they can go is to the Office of Dispute Resolution. That the phone number is posted on the web. There's an email address that can be used. We also have an online complaint form that people can fill out. They can choose to identify themselves or not. They can remain anonymous. The only challenge with an anonymous complaint is if we don't get all the information we need, it's very hard to investigate. But we have a way to communicate with someone through that platform that allows them to continue to remain anonymous. So let me emphasize that. There is a way for us to communicate with the complainant and allow them to remain anonymous and get the information we need to do an investigation. So that's an avenue open to someone. If they're not, hopefully they're comfortable with that. Of course, if someone has any issue in an employment-related matter, they can always go to the Human Resources Department, which will also either assist them or help connect them to ODR. But in either case, what's imperative is that people do bring forward their complaints and share the information they have so that we can figure out if there's something going wrong. I guess the other thing I would say is we didn't have the stats here, but we certainly have taken corrective action up to and including separating people when the evidence warranted that as an outcome.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Mr. Sylvan. And just on behalf of the board, I mean, part of our oversight duties is precisely this, is to ensure that there is zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination or any kind of harassment, and all of the other issues or complaints that might come across. We have oversight responsibility to ensure they're all taken seriously and they're all investigated to the proper end. So we're really fortunate to have someone of your caliber, Marty, on this team and running the Office of Dispute Resolution for that reason. So thank you for what you do, and I hope people are listening that know that there are processes in place. And again, saying the word zero tolerance and having posters and flyers is one thing, but really taking action on it by having someone of your caliber is really what makes us sleep at night, I think. Thank you so much, Marty. Thank you, Dr. Sylvan.
Thank you.
With that, the next item on the agenda are, reports by representatives to the board. We have 20 minutes for this. The first report will come from our student report from Colin Bryant.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Hi, yes, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Chairwoman Ripley, governing board members, faculty, fellows, and guests. For the final Student Senate project update, I'd like to let you all know that it is nearly complete. The words "spread kindness" are painted, and just today, student senators at Down Campus were collecting handprints on the mural from students and staff. It's on a large 10 by 10 piece of framed canvas that can be transported and toured to different campuses. First, it'll be hung at Down Campus. The Student Senate would like to thank everybody who has been involved with this project, especially Student Life, the Art Department, Health and Safety, and Facilities. If this is the last meeting, I'd like to leave a point of improvement for the governing board regarding September meetings. Since Student Senate meets over the summer, it would be most efficient if the student representative is given time to present at the first governing board meeting of the year in September. This would allow the Pima Aztec Student Senate to present ideas to the board early in the year and in essence get a jump on what they're going to accomplish for the 2022-2023 school year. And this is the last meeting. Without much else to say, I'd like to thank the board for the response and action taken on each of the issues Pima Aztec Student Senate has brought forward this year. Right from the start, the issues that the Student Senate has brought forward were taken seriously and acted on with urgency. This goes with the lighting issues at downtown campus. The same goes for the Wi-Fi issues at East Campus. The Pima Aztec Student Senate is proud to say that we've spurred the gender-neutral bathroom movement, promoting equality for all. There's been one common thread to these issues, one person on the board who has shown a special dedication to the Student Senate, and the person we'd all like to thank is Dr. David DeRay for always coming through when we needed him the most. Again, PCC Board of Governors for fostering a successful Student Senate this year. With that being said, thank you all for your time and have a good night.
Thank you so much. And of course, you're the reason why we're here. So thank you so much for what you do. And we look forward to hearing from you in the fall. We do, just as a reminder, we do have one more board meeting in June before summer break. Next to report is from the adjunct faculty, Sean Mendoza.
Chairwoman Ripley, Chancellor Lambert, members of the board, and honored guests. With the spring semester coming to an end, I want to provide an update to the adjunct faculty tiered system. The new system can be found at the end of the faculty compensation policy posted yesterday for 21-day comment. I encourage the board, my fellow adjunct faculty peers, and the college community to review the work of our committee and the AERC. Since the adjunct faculty are not part of the classification and compensation study here at the college, our addition to this policy is particularly important to all part-time instructional employees. We, the committee, believe that by recognizing the years of service and professional development of its employees, this tiered system can help retain qualified and quality faculty members with a focus on student success. If all goes well, we hope you will strongly consider supporting this initiative when it hopefully comes before you for approval later this summer. Some of us at the adjunct faculty ranks have been waiting for this tiered initiative since 2014. And by hitting this 21-day comment milestone, I'd like to recognize Sarah Jansen and Kate Schmidt for their leadership, Dr. David B. for his fiscal wisdom and partnership, and Chancellor Lambert and Provost Duran Cerda for their support of our employee group. And lastly, the board for creating an environment where the voices of adjunct faculty are both heard and valued. Thank you for your continued support of the adjunct faculty. Have a great summer, and I look forward to seeing you in the fall. Lastly, congratulations to all the Pima Community College students who will be graduating later this month. This ends my report.
Thank you so much, Sean, and we hear you. And without adjunct faculty, we couldn't do what we do. So thank you so much for that. Next, staff report from Erica Elias.
Good evening, Chairperson Ripley, members of the board, Chancellor, and guests. Student Affairs is having distressed student trainings at all the different campuses for staff. Academic success counselors are helping staff members understand this difference between students that are in crisis and students that are just encountering everyday issues. This is another way that Student Affairs is helping to support not only our students, but our staff members as well. I wish everybody a really good summer, and this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. Next, we have a faculty report from Denise Riley.
Sorry, my lighting is a little funky there. Good evening, Chair Ripley, members of the board, colleagues, and guests. Graduation 2022 is upon us. As faculty, we will all be there to celebrate our students' successes. Faculty accomplishments you'll note in the notable faculty accomplishments section of the board report. You'll note that student success has a compilation of yearly accolades by department, but also I wanted to highlight the 40, yes, that's a correct number, 40 faculty OER fellows who applied to increase the no-cost textbooks, as Dr. Richmond mentioned earlier with the OER initiative. And so I also want to thank Dr. Dolores Duran Cerda for acknowledging the faculty emeritus here. And the reason I bring that up is because each of these faculty emeritus that are in the room have 20 plus years of service given to Pima Community College. We want and need strong leadership at the college that support faculty. We are in the trenches, we like to say, day in and day out. We are also in it for the long haul here at Pima Community College. So with many administrators leaving, possibly leaving, availabilities currently in high positions, we just want to be sure that we acknowledge and that we recognize and we recruit and retain leaders that believe in faculty. Members of the governing board, thank you for all your support to faculty over this past year, and we look forward to continuing our reports and communication and relationship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. Yes, again, thanks to all faculty, because both adjunct and permanent faculty, this is why we're here. I mean, we're here for the students, but you make it all happen. And indeed, you are in the trenches, pretty literally. So thank you for that. And that concludes our reports. Well, the representatives to the board. The next report will be from Dr. Duray in place of Chancellor Lea Lambert.
Thank you, Chair Ripley and members of the board. First, on behalf of the Chancellor, I want to welcome two of our new administrators, Brandy Delena, who is our new Assistant Vice Chancellor for Facilities. And Brandy comes to us most recently from the University of Arizona, where she was a construction project manager. But before that, she had several years with the South Orange County Community College District in California, overseeing a lot of capital projects there. So we want to welcome Brandy. Also want to welcome Dr. Josie Milliken, who is our new Dean of Distance Education. And actually, Dr. Milliken has been in this role since last July, but she's now in this role permanent. And Josie also was a department head for online. She was a writing faculty member, and she was the president of our academic senate. So we really want to welcome Josie Milliken as well. And then I just want to highlight some of the events of this since the last board meeting. We had on April 14th, we had our signing day. So this is really our way to celebrate the commitment that our incoming students make. And Chair Ripley, thank you so much for the inspiring words you gave to those students who committed that day. And thank you, Board Member Klinko, for being present as well. We gave out a number of scholarships, and several hundred students committed to finishing their programs. Also, really want to commend our business students. They participate every year in a case competition at the University of Arizona, and they won first place this year. And they have won first place 5 out of the last 7 years, and they're competing with other community colleges in the state. So real kudos to our business students and to Dean Jim Craig and the department head Vivian Knight and all those faculty advisors that coach those students. Also, the Chancellor and others of us participated in a town hall meeting for access and disability. And we held a panel. I want to thank Ken Hosto, who is our Director of Access and Disability Resources, and Hilda Ladner, who coordinated that. And we had a wonderful panel that was moderated by Ken Hosto with Dr. Amanda Krause from the University of Arizona and Jay Johnson from the Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and then Marty Macia, who you heard from, participated in that as well. And then these discussions, we've been doing this with community groups throughout the year, are helping to inform our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. Also, the Chancellor participated in an event at the University of Arizona. He was on a panel with President Robbins and with Kathy Prather and they talked about the future of work and its impact on education. Also, Nick mentioned our Futures Conference that we had on April 22nd. I want to thank Nick Richmond and the whole team who coordinated that. We talked about our facilities and educational plan, master plans, as well as that climate action plan, and got input from the community. On April 22nd, the Chancellor and a group of us, we met with the leadership of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, the commander and his leadership team, who were very impressed with what we're doing in our centers of excellence, and they want to come over to see the centers. They were particularly interested in our cyber security center. Also, we had great representation at the annual American Association of Community Colleges conference in New York. We had 4 of our groups at Pima that gave presentations. Everything from, we did apprenticeships, we did on our micro credentials, and then we also talked about closing equity gaps. And so I think we were one of the best represented in terms of presentations. Also on May 5th, we had a meeting with the leadership of the Pascua Yaqui tribe, with the chairman and the council. And both the chancellor and the chairman, they exchanged gifts. But the chairman and the council were very interested again in our centers of excellence, so they want to come over to really tour all those centers. So we're going to schedule a tour for them to see all of our centers of excellence as well. And then you already mentioned the chef Jeff, and we just want to thank, I really want to thank Jim Craig and Jewel Madu and the Pima County Pima Community College Foundation, Marcy Euler, who really made that happen. One of the most powerful, I think, moments was when after that, the next day, many of us, or a few of us, accompanied Chef Jeff to the federal penitentiary and the federal prison, and how he spoke to those inmates about second chance was really inspiring. And he also went and spoke to the Gospel Rescue Mission as well. And then the final thing I want to do is I actually want to acknowledge our student senators and the incredible work that they have done this year. They are to be commended. They have been both professional, and the way they have advanced the college forward, and their advocacy for the students has been really remarkable. And this mural project, which you're all going to see, that's going to be a wonderful gift to the college. So that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Dr. Duray. Next, we go on to information items. The information items were posted on publicly, so we will go next. There are 5 items on that. Next is the consent agenda, also provided in the board documents. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Excuse me, I would like to table some items on the consent agenda.
Yes, board member.
Point of clarification, tabling means we wouldn't vote on them. I mean, we could consider them separately, I would think, Mr. Sylvan?
So I was going to see if I could ask a clarifying question. Do you mean, so table, as Mr. Klinko is saying, means we would move them to a different board meeting? Pulling them from the consent agenda means we would move them to later in the agenda, have a regular discussion, and treat them like a regular action item instead of a consent agenda, which is that your preference?
Well, one item, 4.4, I would like to have a discussion on that one. And on 4.14, put that on a different agenda, because I think on that one, I would like more information as far as a study session.
Chair Ripley, I believe that as a point of order, moving an item to a future agenda would require a vote.
So I think, my suggestion based on what you've indicated you would prefer is that we're going to pull both of them from the consent agenda, make them regular action items, so we can discuss the one and the board can vote or table it. On the one where your preference is to move it to a later board meeting, then when it's treated as a regular action item, that can be the discussion at that point, and that could be a motion to table it.
So what we're going to do is then discuss 4.4 and 4.14. Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. So to be clear, based on what you've requested, what we would do is move the consent agenda minus 4.4 and 4.14, and then when we get to the action section of the agenda, the next part, we will take both of those two items separately, but we'll deal with both of them as part of the next section of the agenda.
That's fine.
Am I being clear what I mean? Okay.
Okay, so I had made a motion, so I will withdraw my motion, and then I will offer a new motion based on what Mr. Sylvan just outlined, with the full consent agenda approval minus 4.4 and 4.14 to be considered separately.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion to approve consent agenda minus 4.4, items 4.4 and items 4.14 has been approved. So, next we have the action items.
So you can take them in whatever order you like. We could either just take the agenda in the order it is and then end with 4.4 and 4.14, or if you want to do those first, we could do them first. It's whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Well, why don't we just go, we'll go down the list, 5.1, 5.2, then 4.4 and 4.14. Let's do that. Okay. So 5.1 is capital project plan for fiscal year 2023, and I turn that over for discussion or introduction to Dr. B.
So if I might, point of order. So normally what we do is read the recommendation, a board member moves the recommendation, there's a second, and then we have discussion.
Okay, discussion comes later. Sorry about that.
So
For action items 5.1, 5.2, 4.4, 4.14, do we have a motion to?
No, sorry, let me clarify what I'm saying. So we're going to take them one at a time, and for each one, we'll read the recommendation, see if a board member would like to make a motion, and then if there's a second, we'll have discussion on the item, including presentation, and then board members can either vote the item, or if someone would like to amend the recommendation, you can do that.
So I'm not taking a motion then right now. That's what I did. Okay, let's start with item 5.1. Dr. B, would you like to please read the recommendation?
Mr. Sylvan.
Mr. Sylvan.
So usually it doesn't really matter, but usually I do it. So let me read the recommendation if you don't mind, then we'll
All
see
right.
if a board member would like to make a motion, if there's a second, and then we'll go to discussion. And then we'll deal with whatever procedural issues come up after that. So 5.1 is the capital fund budget and college reserves. The Chancellor recommends the governing board approve $49 million in capital projects and estimated life cycle needs for fiscal year 2023.
So moved.
All those in favor?
No, so,
No discussion,
sorry, now we're going to have
sorry.
discussion, and if you'd like Dr. B to share some information, this would be an appropriate time to do that.
I would start maybe with an introduction from Mr. DeRay.
So I'd like to introduce Dr. B, who will address this issue.
Thank you. Dr.
Can
B?
everybody see my screen?
There he
Okay.
is. There he is.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Well, good evening, Chairperson Ripley, members of the board, Dr. DeRay, colleagues, and guests. I'm going to be talking tonight about a couple of items related to the proposed budget, starting with the capital project plan, and then I'll get into the next item will be more detail related to the budget as a whole. So the capital budget, the way that the college puts together our capital budget is that we ask, it's sort of a bottom-up approach where we ask the different units to put together what their capital needs might be for the year, compile it through an automated process, and then compare the list of what the wants and needs are to the resources available. We put together a presentation that's got a little more detail than we've done in the past years to sort of show a little bit longer term perspective of where things look. And then also the other thing that we did this year is really focused on not only the priorities of the college, what we know we need to do, but also, my screen is shooting by, making sure that we actually have the capacity to manage those projects in the course of the year. So the focus this year is really on identifying the realistic cash outlays that will happen in the course of the year for the projects that already are pre-approved and need additional funding, and for those new upcoming projects. And we provided detailed information in terms of where the funding sources for those projects are. One of the reasons that I'm saying that having a realistic portrayal of what might happen in the course of the year is that because we have so many projects going on right now, we have had realistic in terms of you have what we can possibly manage as a college. And then we also, as you know, there are a number of challenges in terms of getting equipment available through pipelines and the marketplace. That's been particularly true for IT equipment. So some of this stuff, it's sort of a realistic portrayal of what we can possibly do this coming year. The other thing that's worth mentioning is once those projects and wants and needs are identified, they are vetted through a process where facilities, IT, and strategic planning all review the projects to make sure that they're in alignment with what the college needs are, making sure that the projects identify the proper costs associated with those projects, and that they meet the college strategic needs as a whole. So that's basically the summary of how the process works. Then what we do is we take a look at the resources available, and this is a detailed spreadsheet that summarizes what the assets are available. Looking at the time frame was as of January, identifying the assets that we had available, and then taking from those assets available or the resources available commitments and other payables, other liabilities, those kinds of things, take those out of the mix to identify what kind of resources we have available, and that's what's located here at the bottom. So resources available after all of those things are taken out get to about $60 million. Then, and this is a new worksheet that we've been identifying, this is sort of a risk assessment approach to looking at the finances and where we're at with the college in terms of we know we want to invest as much as we can in the infrastructure of the college to get these centers of excellence up and running, to get the proper equipment up and running for students to be trained on state-of-the-art equipment. But then we also have realistic resource availability. And so what this is doing is looking at how do we spread these different projects out over the course of the next few years, and what does it look like in terms of the risk, in terms of are we overspending, are we spending down the fund balances that we've accumulated over the years? And what it really shows here, and it's in the yellow for the year 1 and 2, is because in reality we know that in the upcoming 2 years we're going to be finishing up those Center of Excellence projects and deliberately spending down some of the accumulated fund balance that we've generated over the last number of years. The budget presentation has another slide that shows how our fund balance has accumulated over time, and you can see that there's healthy growth going on, but we don't want to necessarily continue to grow. We want to reinvest in the college, and that's why the college and the board put together a board policy, a finance policy that sort of sets what targeted reserves are going to be and gives us a target threshold to be able to reinvest our resources back into the college and not spend down and deplete the resources of the reserves that we have to an unhealthy level. Because what you want for credit purposes, for emergency, unforeseen issues that might come up, you want to have a healthy reserve on hand for all of those purposes. And so what we're trying to do is balance all of those different needs of the college along with the resources that we have available. So in your packet is a detailed list of all the proposed projects for fiscal year 23. This shows them specific to the revenue bonds projects, finishing up the revenue bonds projects, where we need to add a bit more funding to some of those projects, and the different expected years for when we'll be spending the money. And then this is, again, similarly shows where the money that has been spent to date, the remaining revenue bonds funds that we have set aside for those projects that will be spent for those projects. And then this would show where we need to find additional college funds through our reserves accumulated fund balance to pay off those projects, those expected projects in the various areas. And as I said, the board packet has a detailed list of the projects that we're expected to put into the budget for the upcoming year. Like with the budget, we're setting the overall capacity. That's the maximum the college can spend. It does not require us to spend money on some of these projects. So where we have a project that might not have been fully approved by the board, we would put budget aside for that, but then that might come back to the board for approval before we do that project. So, and if the board decided not to do a particular project, that money then wouldn't be spent and would go back into reserves to go into the capital budget in an upcoming year. With that, I'll pause and ask if the board has any questions about the capital budget.
Madam Chair?
Yes, are there any questions
Yes.
from the board? Yes, board member.
Is this on? Sorry. Yeah. So I was having a little hard time reading your PowerPoint, but I'm looking at my list here. Can you just remind us, though, after we, if we do this 49 million, what is our reserves that remain in terms of, is it 90 days spend in the reserves remaining even after we get through this tranche?
Yeah, what we have is, sorry, I'm shooting ahead to my slide, which I have, it's in the other presentation. Right now, our estimate for what the reserve we have on hand are about 200 million. The ratio that we have, and it's a very conservative measure, is a 75% threshold of what the general fund budget, the general and designated fund budgets are. So what we do is we set aside a reserve and we say we want to have at least 75% of what our general operating expenses would be for the upcoming year. It's a really conservative measure. Another way to think about it is it would be enough money to, if we had no other revenues, you could run for 9 months. But again, that's not how it would ever play out in that kind of an emergency situation. If we fall below that threshold, if the board were to approve projects that dropped us below that threshold, what it triggers is that in the budget process, if we did that this year and we overcommitted and say we didn't have revenues coming in the course of the year like we're expecting in the budget, and we drop below that threshold, what that would trigger is that I would at the next budget process next year, I'd have to come forward to you with a budget plan for how we're going to get back to that threshold, that 75% threshold. So it triggers an automated process for us to say, here's our plan for how we're going to get back to that healthy level.
Can I ask a follow-up, please?
Yes, please.
So this is a great list. I appreciate this. Is it prioritized in any way?
It is. I don't know exactly how the priority came together. It's sort of in order. I think that, yeah, I'm looking at the priorities. It's in order of the sponsoring division. And you can see that the ones that are listed as ongoing, those are more like what you'd consider to be life cycle, deferred maintenance, regular and routine type projects. So that's where those things are identified as ongoing. Those are things that we have money set aside in the capital budget just about every year. And then as you go down, if they're not listed with an ongoing flag, those are more like one-time equipment expenses.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Board Member Garcia.
Dr. B, I have a question on, I know that we're increasing the tuition. So I don't know if it's possible if you could give us the information on, okay, I know you said you projected how much that increase would be, and specifically it was geared towards student services. So I, as a board member, want to make sure that that money is only going to student services and not for all these other projects or for reserves. Can you provide that for us?
We would definitely will provide follow-up, and we'd be happy to do that during the course of the year as we see what the expenditures are for those. What we set those funds were intended to be used for continuing the laptop program, the hotspot lending program, those two programs, the technical support for staff to keep that program up and running, and some of the other support for student success classes. So there's no question that the $2, which generates, it was about, I think it was a little bit, it's about $750,000, generates the money that is actually doesn't fully support all of those needs, but will help in a great way toward meeting those needs. And the money from tuition will be used for those purposes.
Okay, as long as you report on that and, you can show that,
Be happy
I'm
to.
okay.
Any other questions?
Ms. Chairwoman?
Yes.
Yeah,
Board
thank
Member.
you, Ms. Ripley. Dr. B, could you just remind us, are these items in or out of the expenditure limit?
It is a combination. Some of these would be within expenditure limitation. Some of them would be without. So it depends on if it's a purchase of a major capital facility or land would be outside of expenditure limitation because that's a specific exclusion. If it's equipment, just purchasing normal type equipment, computing equipment, that sort of thing, because there's a list that has money for that, that would be within expenditure limitation. The reason that we identified that as part of this slide is that that as we go through, we have accumulated for some of these projects also expenditure limit capacity that we can use for that. But it's something that we have to attend to going forward. The reality right now is because of the passage of 481, we increased our expenditure limitation capacity sufficiently that it's not too much of a worry right now. And if it gets to be a worry, we'll start doing what we were doing a few years ago, which is lease purchasing equipment, things like that. But at this point, it's not something that we need to worry too much about. It's something in the next few years, more like a 5 years out kind of a thing. But we built enough capacity that it shouldn't be a problem and won't be a problem if enrollment grows again. If it goes anywhere back to where it was, we shouldn't have to worry about expenditure limitation for the foreseeable future. If enrollment stays where it currently is at, we'll be talking about it in about 4 or 5 years. And we have strategies that we will employ to deal with that.
Yes.
Okay,
Board Member
so
Garcia.
I was just trying to understand what was just discussed. So Mr. Klinko stated that he said something about the expenditure limitation. So am I understanding that the increase in tuition, that if we don't have the students, we would not meet the expenditure limitations, but for now, right now, we are okay. So then that money, that tuition increase would not go to us? I'm just a little confused.
It's not related to tuition. So expenditure limitation puts a limit on what your expenses are that you're allowed to spend.
Right.
And it's tied to your enrollment, right? The formula is based on your enrollment in comparison to a base year enrollment. And so if enrollment grows from where it's at currently, our expenditure limitation will grow also.
Right.
It grows with inflation and it grows with enrollment growth. If enrollment stays where it's currently at, what will happen is if our expenses continue to grow as they would normally grow, then in 5 years' time, we might have a conversation about expenditure limitation again. But again, there's some strategies that we can employ, and we'll be talking about that. I'll talk about that when we get to the budget discussion, because when we're talking about the 3-year budget plan, that's where expenditure limitation also comes back into play.
Okay, I've got it. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Discussion? Okay, with that, thank you so much, Dr. B, for that explanation. With that, all those in favor of approving action item 5.1, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those disapproving? Anyone disapproving signify by saying nay. Abstentions? 5.1.
The capital budget, correct?
Yes.
Clarification, after Chair Ripley, after this, I know that we were going to talk about the 4.1. I exited out because I needed to.
We're going line item by line item, 5.1, and then 4.1. Right, we're going to do, we just did 5.1. Next, we will vote on 5.2, then 4.1, and then 4.14.
Okay.
So we need to close this one out. Again, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I hear 4 ayes and
No.
1 no. So with that, the action.
I would say no as well, too.
Okay, so to be clear, we have 3 ayes and 2 noes. With that, the action item 5.1 passes. Next action item is 5.2, publication of fiscal year 2023 proposed budget in preparation for the June 2022 public hearing and special board meeting to adopt the budget and set property tax rates and levies. Mr. Sylvan, can you please read the action item?
Thank you, Chair Ripley. So let me provide a little bit of context here, because what I'm going to read is slightly different than what's in your board packet. So originally we were expecting that the actual hearing on the budget and the vote would take place at the June 8 meeting. There's an issue with scheduling for all board members, and we're trying to make sure we have a date when participation by all board members is not an issue. So what I'd like to do is read a substitute recommendation that gives us a little bit of flexibility while we figure out what's going to be the best date to deal with this issue. So if I might, here's what I'm proposing as the recommendation. The Chancellor recommends the Governing Board approve publication in accordance with statutory requirements of the fiscal year 2023 budget in the Arizona Daily Star, preferably on May 18, 2022 and May 2025, and in any event no later than 15 days before, and a second time no later than 7 days before a public hearing and meeting to set property taxes and levies and to adopt the budget, and conduct a public hearing and a special board meeting preferably on June 2nd, 2022, and in any event no later than June 20, 2022, for the purpose of adopting the budget and setting property tax rates and levies.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. DeRay?
Would you like any context from Dr. B, or would you like to
Yes,
vote?
I think we would. We
Okay.
do need some
So,
context.
Dr. B, would you please provide an overview of the proposed budget?
I would be happy to. Chairperson Ripley, members of the board, Dr. DeRay, colleagues and guests, it is now my pleasure to get into the nuts and bolts of the proposed budget as a whole, which again, as we discussed a few minutes ago, it establishes the maximum spending capacity for the fiscal year. The college can go below these levels, but once the levels are set and approved, adopted by the board at the public hearing, the college cannot spend over that amount. And so again, you want to establish the capacity for where the college might spend money or might need to spend money in the upcoming year, but it doesn't require you to do so. The way that the budget comes together every year, as you know, is through a series of conversations and board actions that occurred during the year. First of all, we have early preliminary discussions early in the fall about where does the budget look like it's going. We have a couple of study sessions. We get some board, we talk about what the priorities are that have come up from the college's standpoint and get feedback from the board through a number of these conversations. And then the actions that start occurring are around setting tuition, which we set in March, the employee benefits discussions about what the premiums are going to be, the employee benefit structure, the costs that the college is going to incur for that. And then later on, what comes together is property tax information comes in from the county. We start learning a little bit more about the state budget and what potential funding we might get from the state. And we fold all of those things together into this May budget presentation and the state budget form so that we can publish this information for the taxpayers to take a look at, and the truth in taxation information if you're going to increase the tax rate. Publish that in the newspaper so that we can have the public hearing, as Jeff Sylvan just mentioned, that the date may be to be determined, but that it will be early in June when we actually have the public hearing and then formally adopt the budget. Ideally, it'll be about early June. So as we've been discussing with the board, our priorities right now, and I just talked a little bit about the capital budget. and the priority to continue and get those centers of excellence up and running, handle the necessary deferred maintenance, those kinds of things, fold that into the budget. And then with the operational budget, we've been talking about this for some time now, is really prioritizing employee compensation. Because of expenditure limitation, because of other challenges that we've had at the college, the state reducing the college's budget or the college's appropriations, things like that, that it's been some years going back quite a bit in time where we've been holding salaries very flat or giving very moderate increases that really don't keep pace, haven't been keeping pace with the cost of living. As a result of that, the college has been undergoing a class and compensation study with an external vendor that was referenced earlier. It has been going on for a while now because it is a very comprehensive study that basically the intent of that exercise is to look at every job that is at the college, every regular position that's at the college, identify what its best what the most appropriate market comparison is for that position, and then ensure that we're paying our folks in these positions appropriately for the great work they do that's in line with market rates for those wages. It's a very comprehensive effort. It involves looking at all the job classifications, the job descriptions, the job families, and then being able to compare those to market comparisons outside. That's why it takes a long time to do that study. That's coming to the very end right now. We don't have the final results of that, but hopefully we will at the June board meeting. That is my goal, is to get those scales in front of the board so that the board can approve those and we can make those take effect at the very beginning of the fiscal year. As mentioned earlier, we do have money set aside, and I'm going to talk about that as I go forward in the budget a little bit, but we do have reserves set aside, and we do have a plan that if we don't get the scales approved by the board and that goes into fall, that we will be able to make adjustments for salaries between so that they take effect for July and then get adjusted with what the actual scale adjustments would be in the fall. But that is not the way that I am hoping to do this. I want to get this done in June for so that it can more easily take place and more effectively take place in July. On top of that, the other priority that we've really put into the budget is for adjunct faculty pay. And there was a reference to this by Sean Mendoza earlier, that we have been working, the college has been working with a representative adjunct faculty folks on setting up a new tier system where there will be 2 tiers of adjunct faculty pay. That will come to the board for formal approval in June. I can tell you that what it looks like right now and what we've put into the budget, because it's clearer right now than the class comp results are. So we've actually folded in what the expected costs of that tier program are going to be into this budget, which is that we are proposing to lift the tier 1 rate, which is what our current rate is, by about 3.4% up to $900 per credit hour. And then the tier 2, and those would be for faculty who have taught for the college before for some number of terms and have gone through some professional development, that those qualifying faculty would be receiving a premium pay of 5% on top of that. So for those folks, the pay would be the 3.4% plus 5%. So it's about an 8%, roughly an 8% increase for the people who qualify for tier 2. We'll talk to the board more about that in June with more specificity in terms of what qualifies someone for tier 2. But I'm giving you, sort of foreshadowing what that's going to be. We have folded the impact of that into these the figures that you're going to see. But in terms of the class comp study, we for the regular employees, we've reserved about $9 million for the impacts of that class comp study. So it shows up a little different. For the adjunct faculty, it'll show up in the adjunct faculty line. For the other employees, it won't show up in the employee groups, in the employee lines in the budget. But I assure you that it is reserved and will be available to address the class comp issues as we propose them to the board. Let me move forward. As Board Member Garcia just asked the question, the board approved in March a $2 per credit hour increase for tuition. That is going to support the continuation of, and actually the ongoing and regular, the permanently providing student success courses at no cost. And then the other thing that we also committed to doing is to continue the student lending program for computers and for hotspots for students to be able to borrow equipment from the college. Funding from in the budget will go to replacing lost or damaged equipment. And so that is where the tuition dollars will go. We'll be happy to show the board that the expenditures for those different programs are going to greatly exceed the $2 in tuition, but we will follow up with the board on those reports. In order to generate the revenue, we've talked with the board about potentially tapping into our tax base. I'm going to go into I have a detailed slide about the tax base information. The growth from existing property, that is properties that are new to the tax rolls, that generates about $2 million for the college in the upcoming budget. So without doing a tax increase, we would get an additional $2 million of revenue year over year. And then going and increasing the tax levy by 4% would generate another $5 million. And again, I'll get into the details about that in a second and what the implications are for folks in just a second. We did fold in some additional expectations in terms of state appropriations for STEM-based programs. And the state estimates for what the additional money from Prop 207 will be coming in. The biggest thing that will stick out in the budget and in the charts that are upcoming is the reduction of federal aid in terms of the higher ed relief funds, the COVID relief funds that both supported direct aid to students, but also provided institutional support that we used both to do a number of the things that we just talked about with the tuition that we're now covering with tuition, but also covered additional capital outlay for improving our Wi-Fi infrastructure, which we're in the process of doing, upgrading to Wi-Fi 6, which will be very noticeable to folks around the campuses, and then putting up different safety and security related things, COVID related pieces of equipment throughout the college. That funding is now going away, so you'll see that in the budget where this big federal funds from last year are shrinking dramatically. Again, that was anticipated because we knew that that wasn't going to be an ongoing source of funding. As I mentioned, we have reserved, and it is to be determined in terms of exactly how the money gets allocated, but approximately $9 million for salaries and wages for regular employees. Based on what the overall costs are for regular employees, that translates, translates into probably about an on average 7% increase if we allocated all of it out. One of the things that we will be talking about is reserving some of the money for when we do the class comp study. There is going to be an appeal process. So there are going to be people who will be placed into jobs based on the descriptions, the job descriptions for that individual, but we're going to have an appeal process if someone thinks that their job got categorized incorrectly, because we have more than 1,000 jobs that we're tracking on, and we've gone, one by one to make sure that they're accurate. There will be examples where people think that their jobs aren't coded correctly. And we want to reserve a little bit of money that for in the case where those appeals go through, and then we end up reclassifying those jobs up, or that we would have money set aside in the budget for it. So the $9 million won't be immediately allocated, but a good portion of it will be within the class comp structure. First goal is going to be placing people as appropriately as possible into the class comp structure. The second goal is then confirming that no one is making less money than they currently make. So that would be their base pay, plus they currently are getting $1,000 for the year. That was something we did this last year. So it would be their base pay plus the $1,000 is what we're going to be comparing to. We will ensure that no one is making less than that. And then for those that after we do that test are flat, we'll be looking at doing some kind of a lift to those folks so that everybody sees some kind of a positive lift in this upcoming year. The bigger, there's going to be a disproportionate or differential impact for people, those whose jobs are classified, that the market indicates that they've been paid below market, will be slotted for bigger than average increases, and then some, of course, will be more on that lower level. But what we're going to try to do is come up with a structure where everybody gets some kind of an increase in this upcoming year.
Chair Ripley?
And definitely no one will make less than they make currently.
Yeah, I just have a question. Chair Ripley?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. B, could you tell us with the $9 million, as it's conceived through this class comp study, what do you think the average increase? I mean, I know, as you just articulated, some people are already at the ceiling, some people are not, but $9 million spread across the system, on average, what do you anticipate the increase being?
The average will be something like around 7% if we allocate out the healthy side of that $9 million. And again, that's what we're looking to do. That $9 million has to cover fringe benefits that are associated with the wages as well. So it's not all going to be directly to salaries, but a good portion of it, the majority of it will be, and again, the average increase will be probably in the range of 7%. And we'll give that information to the board when we bring those class comp structures to the board.
And then in addition to the 7%, we're also talking about the 2% cost of living increase.
When I'm saying the 7%, that would include
that's inclusive. So we're looking at about 5% plus that's still enormous, a 7% increase on average. And some people, because as you just said, some people will get significantly more, and some people will get less, but you're still looking at how to implement the steps. Right. So we're talking about a significant increase in payroll across the board this year. So I mean, again, I think
absolutely.
And again, we've been asking. Again, I'm really I just want to be very clear about my appreciation to your team and everyone's patience on the class comp study. We know it's taken a lot of time, but I think this, the proof is in the pudding. And I think when we're talking about this type of significant increase, which the board has articulated very clearly this year, is something that was a high priority, and we've certainly heard from our employees it's a high priority. I mean, this really goes a long way, and when you add this to our very rich benefits, I mean, this is a significant increase. So I'm really appreciative, and I'm glad to see this in the proposed budget. So thank you. And finally, could you just talk a little bit about, just very briefly about performance-based pay moving forward?
Yeah, and we'll talk with the board more about that when we get to the actual structures and how the structures are set up. But the board has indicated an interest in having performance-based pay be part of the new class comp structures. So those structures will recognize years of experience in the job. That'll be one of the primary measures of how someone gets placed. So it's not only what the specific job duties entail, then getting placed in a grade, and then having recognition for the years of experience in the actual job. And then the other component that will be factored into it will be the ability to have performance-based pay. And we'll talk with the board more when we bring that specific item to the board about what that looks like in the short term and then in the longer term, because that's going to be something that is going to take, it won't be implemented with full performance-based pay. Certainly on day one, that's something that's going to have to happen through some discussions and some policy language clarifications, but there will be, the capacity is going to be built in to do performance-based pay. The ability to do performance-based pay will be within the structures. And the other component that will likely be in there is that if someone has a performance problem, that they would be slotted as not being eligible to get the same increase if they're on a performance plan, for example. So on the negative side, it's a little bit easier to manage not giving increases to folks who are on performance plans who are having performance problems. What we're going to have to work through is some of the specificity related to performance-based pay supplements, like what you would give the enhanced pay for really high-performing employees. But we do want to have the capacity, and it will be built into the structures, the ability to do that.
Dr. B, you only have a few more minutes, so can you perhaps wrap this up and we can do some further discussion? Thank you.
I can, would be happy to. I do want to take a second, because one of the most important things that we're talking about here is setting up the truth in taxation language and getting, this is one of the decision points for the board, is to approve the us doing a truth in taxation process where we would be increasing the tax levy by 4%. Just want to do a quick, and then I'll shoot through the rest of it real quick after that. But this one to me is really important to the constituents out there. What we're proposing is that the levy neutral, that is just the growth in new property, would set the tax rate at 1.2383. So what that means for $100,000 property is that property would be paying $123.83 to the college for the year. What we're recommending or proposing to the board here tonight is to increase that by 4%, which gets us about halfway. It sort of phases in getting back to our levy maximum, because we have not increased the levy the last 2 years. So this would be going halfway to our levy max. That would increase the tax rate to 1.2878. So again, for a $100,000 property, that's $128.78. So it's about a $5 increase for the year for a property of $100,000. So that's what the board would be, again, and we have to have a public hearing. We have to go through a special truth in taxation process. We put information about that in the board packet. And we would then formally do that process at that June meeting. That generates that $5 for that $100,000 property, because we have about $10 billion of assessed property value in Pima County. That has a significant impact and generates an additional $5 million. So it's really important to the college. It would enable us to do what we're talking about with the class comp study, and is consistent with what we've talked about with the board in prior meetings. The rest of it, we've provided this information to the board now so that I can leave time for questions if the board has any. The overall budget is shrinking from year over year. That's largely because of what I said. The federal funds coming in are shrinking. You can see also that the property tax revenue is growing proportionately. That's something that we'll talk when we talk about the 3-year plan a bit more about the sustainability of this and what our ultimate goal is over the long term. But that at this point, with the priorities, with the fact that we haven't increased the tax levy for the last couple of years, with the priority to really do the market connected salary adjustments that we're talking about, it is a good time for us to do that and recognize the valuable work that our employees are doing. Again, this chart shows how the budget would be allocated. Again, I mentioned really quickly that this does not include the money that we're talking about with the class comp reserve. That would be located up here in the reserve, in that $26.4 million reserve, because it's not allocated specifically to a particular category. So it's an unallocated reserve. Once we identify how that goes in, then we would classify that out to the various employee groups. But as I mentioned, the adjunct faculty line does include the adjustment for the tier program that we're talking about. I'm going to skip through that. This is the slide that I referenced in the capital budget, where it shows where our current reserves are. And I mentioned it was it was close to $200 million. Our target threshold, based on the calculation, is around $150 million. So we're very healthy compared to our target threshold. But this will start coming down by design as we've allocated, and we're doing some of these capital projects that the board has approved, the allied health, where we're funding it out of reserves. We will expect those reserve monies to flatten out. That growth will flatten out and maybe shrink a little bit in the coming couple of years. Budget calendar, we've talked about that. What we've talked about with the board is building a 3-year plan. Because we don't have the specific class comp information, and because that has ongoing obligation, because the new structure has built-in increases that are tied to people's year of experience, what we want to do is come back in the fall and do a real 3-year comprehensive review that'll also set us up really well for the next year. And the other thing that it will do is we'll be able to look at what fall enrollment looks like. So right now, summer and fall look really healthy. There's actually good growth for the first time in a long time. And we want to be able to fold that into the 3-year outlook, and then talk about what does it mean now with the projections going forward in terms of expenditure limitation and the sustainability of the operating funds, right? The right kind of balance between tuition and property taxes going forward, and then creating a structure that is sustainable with our ongoing revenue streams. And I think with that, I think I can shoot through. This is what I talked about in terms of the increasing the levy. It gets us halfway to our levy max. That would give us in fiscal year 24 another ability to move up to the levy to another 4% in tax growth next year, and then we would be at our max, and then it would be 2% thereafter. So we have to plan for that reality in the future. And these are just some of the things that we've talked about with the board in terms of expenditure priorities, things that we're looking at, metrics that we'll talk about with that 3-year planning process, that if enrollment does not grow, that we're going to want to look at staff size and some other metrics related to that are really, with our enrollment being as low as they are misaligned. The number of staff we have are misaligned with the number of students we presently have. But again, we took a big hit with COVID, and it looks like and I'm fingers crossed here, it looks like there's some recovery happening, and it'll be, I think, really good to have that conversation in detail in the fall. And with that, I'll ask if the board has any additional questions related to the overall budget.
Thank you very much, Dr. B, for that very thorough explanation. We did receive a lot of information in board docs, and we do have 2 members of the board that are on the finance committee. So, but it always helps to get an in-depth overview in public so everyone understands. And also, just to be sure, this is the action item that we're voting on is to publish this budget. We won't be voting on it till the next meeting, which Mr. Sylvan illustrated. So with that, I'd like to open up for any questions or discussion from the board. Okay, without any discussion, no discussion, thank you. I would like to take a vote. All those in favor of publishing this draft budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The action passes unanimously 5-0. Next action item. Thank you very much, Dr. B and Mr. Sylvan.
Thank you.
So we'll go back to the next items, which were moved from consent. The first one, 4.4, delegating authority to execute a contract for architectural and engineering design services for the development of the downtown campus hotel properties. So, Mr. Sylvan, can you read a description?
Yes, I'd be glad to, Chair Ripley. The Chancellor recommends the governing board authorize the Chancellor or designee to execute a contract with the successful respondent of the request for qualifications for architectural and engineering services to design and document the hotel properties development project. The Chancellor shall report the results of the selection process to the governing board. Total costs are not expected to exceed $1.875 million.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded, so I open this up for Dr. DeRay's discussion. Thank you.
So what I'll ask is for Dr. B to give just a little bit of more information. You have a lot of the information there in your packet, but could you just, Dave, if you kind of let the board know what exactly they're going to be approving.
Yeah, so this is the first phase of identifying what the college really wants to do ideally with the properties, the hotel properties that the college has, the Tucson Inn, the Copper Cactus, and the Frontier Inn property. We provided the board a presentation. It was, I think, it was actually a little less than a year ago, and talked about the potential uses for those facilities and the range of things that we would like to do with those facilities. This is actually selecting an architect to start doing the design and conceptual work so that we can come back to the board and say, here are the options, here are some different drawings and some different examples of how we could use the property so that the board could then make the decision. Again, this isn't identifying what's going to happen there specifically. It's hiring an architect to do some design work to get that process up and running.
And just to be clear, if I may, so no one has worked with the faculty and the staff yet. So in terms of the actual programmatic planning with an architect, and that's usually once the architect comes on board, then we begin that whole kickoff process where they work with the users.
Great, thank you for that description. Any questions or discussion?
I have a
Board
discussion.
Member Garcia?
Okay. You know, my objection for spending money on this at this point in time is the fact that we're at a very high inflation rate right now. Materials are at an all-time high. Labor is short. And with all the projects that the college is doing at this point in time, I don't think that it's appropriate for us to be spending this money. I think we can wait to do this.
Thank you, Board Member Garcia. Any other discussion? Yes, Board Member Gonzalez.
And I echo Mrs. Garcia's comments. As mentioned, I think we can, as she mentioned, I think we can wait as well. As we all know, and that's one of the things that Mr. B mentioned in reference to the low enrollment that we have. But there's a high inflation right now. I don't think it's the time. I think it's if we're going to be spending the tax dollars money from the people, I think it should be more cost efficient and cost effective as well. Just what we has all mentioned, we have to be real, selective, but more important, be responsible reference to the monies at this times. I think those properties, as mentioned a while ago, I think they can wait, and they should wait. I just saw was reading part of the capital, the one that we were looking at, the capital properties or whatever too. I know that we saw a lot of deferments in reference to the safety for the college, and those would be priorities and not deferred. But right now, I think it's not the right time with the high inflation in reference to the high cost. As I mentioned, we all have to be real responsible to the community to be cost effective, cost efficient, and I say let's wait for it.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I'm sorry. The other thing too is that what they're proposing to be used for is not a priority at this point in time. It really is not a priority. Our priority is to get the centers of excellence built and get the enrollments in. So, that's just my point. And also with the capacity that we have, excess capacity throughout, that we haven't even looked at, and here we're going to go do something else? I'm sorry. That's my opinion.
Yes, Board Member Hay.
Just a point of clarification for those who may still be listening. This is to hire an architectural and engineering firm to begin discussions with programming and design of future buildings. It has nothing to do with building anything right now. It has to do with planning.
It's expense.
It is an expense, and it's a forward-looking investment in our future, which I fully support.
I think for clarity, what Dr. Hay was trying to say is it's for the architect, rather not construction. So in reference to inflation, it's that has nothing to do with it. Construction
it's about spending
would,
money.
But the architect is a different thing. Go ahead, Board Member Klinko.
Thank you, Chair Ripley. I mean, I think it's important to note that we've already voted to move this item forward. We collectively met as a board, we discussed it at numerous meetings, and then we voted to move forward. And still, there's an unwillingness to get behind the board action from 2 members of our board. And I think it's really a concern because it's inconsistent with the criteria spelled out in the HLC and our duty as a board to operate as a board. Because once we've made a decision, we have to get behind the decision. But this continual objection to items that you simply philosophically do not believe in and an unwillingness to bring alternatives is really, frankly, disingenuous. And it continues to undermine the direction and the vision and the momentum that this institution is moving. And frankly, the items that we heard, the programmatic approaches, are key to the success of our students and to supporting our faculty and to enriching this college's ability to operate in a 21st century environment. So with that, I'd call for a vote.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that it just to be effective, I mean, here we are at 8:20, and I mean, this would have been better for a wider discussion because it was on the consent agenda, meaning it was brought forward for approval, and we were to vote under consent today at the regular meeting. Perhaps in the future, bring these concerns up a little bit sooner, and we can have a wider discussion or another study session because we got the board docs on Friday, and we're just now hearing of it today. I hear your concerns, but again, I think it would take a little bit longer for Dr. B, Dr. DeRay, perhaps the Chancellor when he returns, to actually explain, what we're doing in terms of those hotels, which we've done already, but from a bigger picture. But again, if inflation is the argument, that's really not what we're doing here. It's just hiring the architect to plan, because we do need to go forward with those properties. We've all agreed as a board that this is something we're going to do, and so they can't just sit there. We need to somehow go forward and move and make those profitable for the college and for students to be able to use. There's some great ideas for their use, and you know what they are. So I think that's already been discussed. And any other comments?
The question's been called.
Excuse me? Oh. Okay. All those in favor of passing action, 4.4, please signify by saying aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, the motion passes, the action passes 3-0. Next and last action item is action item 4.14. It was moved from consent to action. Rate approval for Acadian Partnership. Mr. Sylvan, can you please read the description?
Thank you. Excuse me. Certainly, Chair Ripley, just one quick correction of the record. So the last item was approved 3-2, not 3-0, but the vote will reflect that in the record.
It's late. I meant 3-2. Yeah, 3-0.
Sorry. So the recommendation for this item is as follows. The Chancellor recommends the governing board authorize the Chancellor or designee to execute a master services agreement with Acadium College Consortium, Inc. to include an addendum agreement for League for Innovation Online Course Share. Further, the Chancellor recommends the governing board authorize setting a flat rate equal to 150% of in-state resident tuition for Acadium Course Share students.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to move and second. Dr. DeRay.
Yes, so I'm going to ask Michael Amick, Dr. Michael Amick, if he could please give us a little background on this.
Thank you so much. And thank you, board members and Dr. David DeRay and those listening. Some of you may know Dr. Rufus Glasper is the former Maricopa Chancellor for the community college system up there, and he is now the League of Innovation President and CEO. League of Innovations is a national entity supporting innovation in community colleges. And he has spearheaded a program to be a national online course seat sharing consortium. And Acadium is the entity charged with creating and implementing that. And so what this agreement does is it allows us, Pima Community College, to put extra vacant seats in our online courses into this consortium. And other community colleges, or not just community colleges, private colleges and universities, they can allow their students to take that online course from us, and it is transcripted onto the student's home institution where they are at. I want to give credit to our new permanent dean, Dr. Josie Milliken. The way that she helps to explain this is like when an airline has extra seats, there are those entities that are helping find ways to fill those extra seats on the airplane. So that hopefully helps explain the first aspect of this agreement. And the 150% tuition is placed there. There's some precedents with other agreements that we've made that we utilize the WICHE, which is the Western States of Higher Education. There's Arizona is one of the 16 states in that agreement. Any student in those 15 other states outside of Arizona already have this benefit of, instead of the out-of-state tuition, they can employ the 150% state tuition. And so that's a little bit of where that dollar amount came from. This board has approved that 150% tuition for other agreements that we have. The Pearson Accelerated Pathways Agreement is one such example. I hope that helps give a picture of this. I invite Dr. Morgan Phillips and Dr. Dave B. to add any further comments that they may have to help explain this.
Thank you. Any comments from Dr. B or Dr. Phillips? Okay, I'd like to open up for discussion or questions. Yes, Board Member Garcia.
Well, I'd like to know, does this mean all online courses would then be available? Vacant seats, as you said?
No, it would not be all online courses. It would only be a course that we submitted to the consortium. And so, for example, what they recommend is that we start by submitting 20 to 25 different online courses and indicating the number of seats that would be available.
Okay, and we would get a return of 150% of the tuition. Is that correct?
That is what the college that is putting the student in our course would pay, but then Acadium does take a percentage of that cost.
And what's the percentage?
I believe it's 25%.
And is there some kind of a fee that we have to pay to be part of this?
That is correct.
How much is it? You said it was 25% they would take from the tuition, but now I'm asking, do we pay, like, for example, unmodeled that we don't even know whether it's making a profit or not? So, we don't even know how many students are enrolled. So, and here we go with another portal. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do. I just like to know what the cost is going to be to the college, what our entire benefit will be, if we can project that.
Yeah, that is part of the documents that were submitted.
Yeah,
there.
it's in a table in the board documents.
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Drake?
Yes, Board Member Garcia, there's a table in your packet that has all of the costs and then the net revenue to the college.
And so I believe for the first 2 years, I believe it's actually the first 3 years, the cost is being held at approximately $12,000 per year to participate.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion? Yes, Board Member Gonzalez.
The Acadium, the college consortium, it's incorporated in Delaware, is that correct?
Did you hear the question?
Dr. Emick, are you familiar with where that
I'm
company
not
is
familiar with
located?
where it's located. We have been working with the appointed representative out of Austin, Texas.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay, with that, all those in favor of approving this action item, please signify by saying aye.
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 No.
This
And the
discussion-
reason is, like I mentioned, my question was not answered, and second,
Point of order, Mr. Garcia.
asked for
Ms.
discussion.
Chair Ripley, discussion is completed and we've already voted on the item.
Yeah, I asked for discussion and there was none, so sorry. I mean, there was discussion. You said there was no more discussion, so we voted already. And we voted 4-1. So the item has been passed 4-1. Okay, with
well,
that,
let me explain my vote then. Can I explain my vote, Mr. Sylvan?
So,
yes, you have the floor, Board Member Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you. Like I mentioned, I did ask the question, but it wasn't answered. The only question is, I said no, but it's reference to, for all of us, I'm glad that there was, it's for, but my question, in my behalf, just to elaborate, is I don't feel I have the informed decision, cannot make an informed decision right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, we completed all the action items. Any requests for future agenda items at this time?
I would like to evaluate the legal counsel's position and also the chief of staff position.
So for next board meeting, two of the agenda items would be to evaluate the council and the chief of staff positions.
Right, their responsibilities, how they serve us, just an explanation,
So
and
you
whether
want-
it's something that we should continue.
So you want their job description, basically? Would that, so that would be an agenda item?
The chair can take that under consideration with
Okay.
the chancellor in the future.
Okay, thank you for that. And any other requests for future agenda items? Okay, with that, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.